Do, do, do. All right. Well, it's 8:30. Why not go live? It's OHL Trade Deadline day, and I hope we have a few trades left in the bank because it's been a crazy few days around the Ontario Hockey League, and I think the bigger trades have probably already taken place. We saw the big one last night, Edward Chalet going to the Kitchener Rangers, which I'm sure for Barrie Colt fans, a little disappointed that Chalet and company have moved on, but still got some pretty good picks coming back. So the Barrie Colts doing pretty good with that trade, and yeah, we'll see if the Barrie Colts do anything else. From what I'm hearing, I don't think the Colts will be doing any more moves. Pretty sure if they do any moves, it'll be a surprise to many. I think the Barrie Colts might be done, but we'll have to wait and see. And yeah, let's have fun with it. So the OHL trade deadline wraps up at 12 o'clock. And of course, once we reach 12 o'clock, then a couple trades might come in after the fact. We saw that yesterday, the overager trade deadline, when we had both the Anson Thornton trade and Connor Punnett trade announced after 12 o'clock. So we could see that here today. So we'll wait and see. So we've got a couple of people on here already. We're already up to 4. So let's get this party started. So yeah, I got a few of my favorite OHL jerseys up. I had to go with the Belleville Bulls because that is definitely my favorite. We need to bring back the Bulls. And I see Braden, you're here too. So yeah, let's get let's have fun with this. There's only one trade that has come in since I did my last post. The Niagara Ice Dogs, they've sent Charlie Burns to the Erie Otters for a 10th round pick in 2026. So the Niagara Ice Dogs, they've been weirdly busy being Niagara. I think it was 26 trades they had last year. So they're on pace. I don't think they're at 26 this year, but we'll have to wait and see. Never a dull moment with the Niagara Ice Dogs. Niagara and Flint have been the two teams that have been quite surprising this year at the trade deadline. We had the shell game of trades yesterday with the Flint Firebirds, and now the Niagara Ice Dogs getting Anson Thornton. We'll have to wait and see if Thornton actually plays with the Niagara Ice Dogs. There's those conditions on the picks, but time will tell. We'll have to wait and see what transpires on that. So right now we're going to wait and see what comes up. I'm going to be refreshing my page quite often to make sure nothing sneaks through, and also see if we get any texts about updates in regards to trades. But other than that, this could be a quiet morning. Hopefully not, but we'll have to wait and see. Why do we think there have been so many trades in the OHL this year? Well, I think for that, probably because the Memorial Cup's in the OHL. So with the Saginaw Spirit, Dave Drinkel, he even said at the start of the season he's going to go all in at the trade deadline, and he's made good on that promise. I think for Saginaw, they're going to be quite the challenge in the OHL. That West Division is going to be quite intense. We've got Sault Ste. Marie and Saginaw going all in, and I think for the Sioux Greyhounds, they're a team I think's got a chip on their shoulders. They're a team that wanted the Memorial Cup. We had the 4 teams bidding. You had, Saginaw, obviously, the Sioux, Niagara bid, and Kingston. And 3 out of the 4 teams, I think, had a chance. But I think because of that, we're seeing a lot of trades this year. And I think also with the surprises, with no one thought Kitchener was going to be where they're at. No one thought, people were thinking the Barrie Colts could be competing for top spot in the Central. That didn't happen. So I think with a lot of the surprises, and even with the North Bay Battalion, I think a lot of teams were expecting Dom DiVincentis to be made available and Ty Nelson, but they've decided to hold on to those 2 players and add. And I think I like what the North Bay Battalion did. They're looking pretty good. I think the Battalion are going to give Sudbury a run for their money. Of course, I think the Sudbury Wolves a lot more deeper, but we'll see how it all plays out. The Sudbury Wolves, of course, have never won an OHL championship, so there's a little hesitation on that front. But it'd be nice to see in the Nickel City they could celebrate a championship at some point, and maybe that'll be this year. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get a lot of trades this morning. I think all the trades were yesterday, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's see what else comes in. There we go. So yeah, well, thanks for those who are tuning in early to the live stream. It's a little different. I'm not used to doing the YouTube lives on the channel. The channel's still pretty new, and yeah, we're trying this out. It's been actually kind of cool to see how much activity the channel's had these last few days. I know it's the trade deadline and a lot of the stuff with that, but it's been pretty cool. Also working on a few potential interviews on the channel. There's a former Barrie Colt who may come on the channel at some point soon. Not going to say who yet. Don't want to jinx it. I was surprised Jordan Donovan got traded from Brantford. Yeah, me too. I did not. I was kind of wondering if Brantford might add at the trade deadline because they're first place right now in the East Division, and they did a bit of a soft sell. But still, I don't think you can say no when the Saginaw Spirit, Dave Drinkle, is pulling up with a truckload of draft picks. They got 8 draft picks in that deal. So Jordan Donovan, he's a great defenseman. I think he's going to excel with the Saginaw Spirit. But yeah, I'm a little surprised too. Brantford kind of sold off. They also sent Van Vliet to the Sudbury Wolves. So it's kind of, I think for Brantford, they saw the writings on the wall that Ottawa was buying, Kingston's looking to buy, and Oshawa with picking up Connor Punnett. I think that was a wise move. The Oshawa Generals, they've been one of the better teams of late in the last few weeks. So I think for the Brantford Bulldogs, they saw, well, maybe we'll look to the future because they've got a young team. You got Luca Testa in the lineup, Merrick Van Acker. I think Brantford, their next year is probably going to be their year. Watch out for Brantford and Mississauga, I think, in the Eastern Conference next season. So I think it kind of makes sense to sell off Jordan Donovan. You get those picks, and then watch a lot of those picks will be flipped at next year's trade deadline. They'll probably flip those to acquire a few more players. So I think the Bulldogs next year is going to be their year, and we'll have to wait and see. But I think I was at the game in Brantford a couple of weeks ago when the Barrie Colts were there. That atmosphere in the playoffs is going to be something else. It's going to be a real home ice advantage for them because the ice surface at the Brantford Civic Center is a lot smaller than a lot of the rinks. So I think it's the junior B scale of the ice. So I think for Brantford, if they can get home ice advantage, they could make some noise in the playoffs. But it is a fun barn, and a little surprised Brantford sold off a bit. Do you think the Firebirds sell Colson Petrie? I was wondering that too, because they already sold off Gavin Hayes and Zachary Giroux, but they also picked up Oliver Peer and Roberto Mancini. So I think for the Firebirds, they want to make the playoffs. Colson Petrie's got another year left in him. I think he's a 2004. Let's just confirm that. But the Firebirds, I'm left scratching my head as to what they're doing. That team down in the West Division, it looked like they were going to sell, and it kind of makes sense when you've got both the Sioux Greyhounds and Saginaw Spirit in that division going full tilt. But for Colson Petrie, he's a 2004. So if you trade him, he could be an overager, but he's also an Anaheim Ducks prospect. So you could, if they get word that Colson Petrie is not coming back next year, if he has a chance to play in the American Hockey League in San Diego, maybe you do move him. But then do they try and move both Petrie brothers? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I guess it's just, you got Colson Petrie and Caden Petrie. Caden Petrie is a 2006. They could move Colson. I think if they moved Colson Petrie, you're going to get a good haul of draft picks on that front. But I don't know. The Flint Firebirds are a very confusing team. I was kind of surprised with how many draft picks they sent to the Windsor Spitfires. They gave them a lot. I think that right now, the Windsor Spitfires, I think they might be one of the biggest surprises for the OHL trade deadline. They've been making so many moves. I'm glad to see Pasquale Zito back with the Windsor Spitfires. He was at home all year. I know he was dealing with injury issues when he was up in North Bay, and I think that's kind of a factor in why he didn't come back. But I'm glad to see Pasquale Zito getting another chance. It sounds like he wanted to go to the Windsor Spitfires. He said, if you're going to trade me, I want to play for Windsor. So it's the Windsor Spitfires and Flint Firebirds, I think, have been intriguing here at the OHL trade deadline. Biggest surprise team this year, in your opinion? Biggest surprise player? Oh, well, I think the biggest surprise team has to be the Kitchener Rangers, having them being in first place. Another surprise is probably just what happened with the Barrie Colts this season with the injury to Bo Akey, and then Frasca went down. it seemed to really throw off. And then they were supposed to get Anson Thornton back at the start of the season, but he broke his finger, so he wasn't able to play. So I think it's a surprise in the sense that the Barrie Colts weren't higher in the standings at this point in the season, but overall, I think the Kitchener Rangers, Ahokas, the head coach from Finland, he's going to win. He has to win Coach of the Year this year. He's been probably the biggest, boost for that Kitchener team this season. He's really helped them out. So I would say biggest surprise would be the Kitchener Rangers, but biggest surprise player, I almost want to go with Luke Misa. I think he's got a great talent. That Mississauga team had a hot start to the regular season, and right now, some of the projections I've seen, he's now put himself potentially as a first-round draft pick for the NHL this summer. So Luke Misa, I think, might be up there as a biggest surprise player. But still, I think for Mississauga, they're another team that's been a bit of a surprise this year. And I'm also curious as to what they're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if they make a couple more moves here today. They sent Xander Vecchi out of Guelph yesterday, which they did get some good picks from the Guelph Storm, but I really like the play of Xander Vecchia. He was a lot of fun to follow with Mississauga. Yeah, there's been a few surprises this year. Another one probably would have to be McKenzie, the goaltender with Ottawa. I knew he was a good goaltender, but he's been playing stellar. You also have Braden Gillespie in Guelph. He's been quite nice with the Guelph Storm. And, it's the Guelph Storm. I think they're a team that, if we find out today at some point that Matthew Poitras is coming back to the Guelph Storm, I think George Burnett might try and add a couple of pieces just to add more dramatics to the Western Conference. The Western Conference has been a lot of fun to follow this year. You've already got Kitchener buying. You've got the Sioux, Saginaw. London, though, they've been kind of quiet. They did that one picking up Caleb Lawrence from the Ottawa 67s, but he's kind of replacing Ethan McKinnon, who announced he's stepping away due to concussion issues. So I'm wondering if we'll see London do something today. They're usually a team that they don't want to sell their future. You never really see the London Knights doing the big trades with the 8 draft picks and the young talent. I think the last time they may have done that was when they sent Thomas to Hamilton, when the Hamilton Bulldogs had their run to the championship. But the London Knights, they might make a small move or two. The Owen Sound Attack, they did their big move last week when they picked up Connor Smith and Sam McHugh from Peterborough. So yeah, the Western Conference is going to be fascinating. I feel like Barrie should have done more at the deadline last year. Blaker, I think you're right. I think the Barrie Colts, they had a chance to bring in some big talent. It sounds like they were in on a few big names last year. You remember they had, you had Harrison, who was with Oshawa. He was available. He ended up going to Windsor. There was Shane Wright. I think there was the rumors that Shane Wright was going to go to London, but I believe Barrie was also in on Shane Wright last year, but he ended up going to Windsor. So they had their chance. They had all the draft picks. And then you had Brant Clark, who came back. So I think the Barrie Colts, I agree, Blaker, the Colts probably should have done more last year. And I think that may have, because they ended up losing Evan Vierling there in that second round playoff series against North Bay, and they didn't have that extra depth to get them through. So I almost wonder too, if they would have made those moves, would we have seen the Barrie Colts maybe sell sooner this season? Because let's face it, they lost a lot of key pieces to the team. And I think having Edward Chalet join the team maybe gave them a little, gave the fans maybe a little false hope with this team, because Chalet, he's got such great talent, and I think he kind of underperformed at times with the Barrie Colts. It seems like he was having a hard time adjusting to the North American game, but I think now that he's moved on to the Kitchener Rangers, I think he's going to probably fit in quite nicely. Like, look at what Philip Machar is now doing with the Kitchener Rangers. Last year, he didn't have the greatest this season, but he really picked it up now with a Hocus behind the bench. So I think Chalet will probably be the same. Although I'm kind of surprised they moved on from Olivier Savard. I thought he could stick around, but sometimes you have to, when you're getting the players back, you have to give something up, because I think Kyle Morey and Blair Scott, those two are going to be pretty nice additions for the Barrie Colts that they picked up in that Edward Chalet deal. Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, I think, right now for the Barrie Colts. Although they did great on the trade with Jacob Frasca, sending Frasca to the Sioux Greyhounds, getting Brandon Sarazotti. He's going to still be able to help contribute as the Colts. They're just 3 points out of that playoff spot behind the Peterborough Petes. And with Peterborough selling the way they did, it looks like they're probably going to have a hard time getting wins. But I don't know. It's the Barrie Colts are an interesting bunch right now. I feel like I agree that they should have probably done more at the deadline last year, and I think they could have gone further. But that it is what it is right now. Do you think the Colts will name a new captain, and who would you pick? I was actually wondering this too. I think the Barrie Colts, they did that before. If you remember when they traded Wilms at the trade deadline a few years ago to the, I believe it was the Owen Sound Attack. The Barrie Colts then named a captain not long after. I think it was it Aiden Brown? Was he named captain after that? But I think the Colts will probably name a captain, and I would not be surprised if it's Bo Jelsma. He's got my early vote. I love Bo Jelsma's play on the ice. He's also a great guy off, and I think it'd be a good move if the Barrie Colts were to name a captain. And if Bo Jelsma is still at the team after the OHL trade deadline today, I think I would probably lean towards Bo Jelsma. The guy, he's a heart and soul kind of player, and I know there's a lot of teams around the OHL who would love to have Bo Jelsma on their squad. So if the Colts keep Jelsma, I think I'd pick him to be new captain for the Barrie Colts. So we are now 8:46. I think the league offices should be open because that's the big thing. You need the league offices to be open so they can approve some of these trades. But we'll have to wait and see in regards to that. It's an interesting setup that they have with the Ontario Hockey League being a weekend league, and they have been getting better. It's been neat seeing that they're starting to be a little more open about some of the situations that go on in the OHL. I know with suspensions, that's been a big factor. We've been wondering, why did this guy get suspended for this amount of time? And, we had this situation with a referee. What's going on with that? So I think the OHL is doing a better job, but I think right now we're just waiting for the OHL offices to open. They may have been open at 8:00, but no trades have come through as of yet. As I mentioned, the last trade to go through, that was Charlie Burns going to the Erie Otters. That trade, the Niagara Ice Dogs. I know I've already talked a bit about Niagara, but they are such a confusing bunch right now. They picked up, of course, Anson Thornton in that trade. He's an overage goaltender. The Ice Dogs are out of the playoffs. You also have Owen Flores, and they also picked up Charlie Robertson from the North Bay Battalion. And this Charlie Burns goalie, he's been playing with the Fort Erie Meteors in the GOGHL. He's been outstanding at that level, and he seemed like he had a lot of potential, and they traded him for a 10th round pick. I don't. He's a young goaltender too. I feel like that trade might come back to haunt the Niagara Ice Dogs potentially. Just Charlie Burns, great goalie, and a lot of potential, but I don't know. I think Niagara is probably thinking the same way as the Barrie Colts. That the Peterborough Petes, they've sold off, so there's that chance that they're going to drop. And then one of Barrie or Niagara could take that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. Niagara's 8 points out, so it's unless they're going to make a couple more moves today, the Niagara Ice Dogs, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I thought they'd sell more, but still very curious why they would pick up Anson Thornton and then trade their young prospect Charlie Burns to the Erie Otters. You have to think Sudbury has some good leadership in the room because there's just got two former captains. Yeah, the Sudbury Wolves picking up McCoy. He's been a great leader with that Peterborough Petes team. So I really like what the Sudbury Wolves have done. And then you got Zachary Giroux and then Noah Van Vliet. This Sudbury Wolves, I hope they can get things figured out there. They're getting the wins. They're getting the points. They're now first in the Eastern Conference standings. I just know that in the past, when they've done some ads or some buy-ins, the seasons didn't end the way they expected. The last time the Sudbury Wolves ended up in the OHL championship was 2007. And that team, they didn't win their division. They were in the middle of the pack. It took them a while to get going. And it wasn't until Mark Stahl really turned it on. And the Sudbury Wolves ended up going to the final to play the Plymouth Whalers. So I would love to see the Sudbury Wolves make it back. And I think the leadership by picking up a guy like McCoy, like Giroux, Van Vliet, I think the Sudbury Wolves are in a good spot. I just hope they gel. That's the only thing, because you can add all these players, and we saw it last year. Look at the Windsor Spitfires, for example. They added Shane Wright, they added Harrison. They added so many big pieces, but when they got to the playoffs, they kind of cruised into the postseason, and then they played the Kitchener Rangers, and the Rangers swept them. And I feel it was because of the chemistry issues, and I don't think they had it clicking at the right time. So that's the only thing I'd be concerned about with the Barrie Colts, or not the Barrie Colts, the Sudbury Wolves. You're bringing in this talent, and the same thing can be said about the Saginaw Spirit. The same thing can be said about the Sioux Greyhounds. You can pick up all these players, but if they don't gel, if you don't get that chemistry, then it's bad news bears for the team. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, because it is fun to see these teams come together, especially like the Sudbury Wolves, because the fans there are so passionate. They deserve to have a good run, and I think this year has a lot of potential. Having Delibor Dvorsky come back or join the team earlier this season, I think was huge, because he's a fun talent. And I think the Sudbury Wolves, they should be in a good spot. And yeah, adding the 2 former captains, I think, helps a ton. So from Jeremy, Saginaw going all in is obvious. Going to be one heck of a game Friday in London. Yeah, the Saginaw Spirit, I'm so glad to see that the Saginaw Spirit are getting the recognition that they are. They had that very slow start to this season. I remember seeing a lot of people posting and asking if they'd move the Memorial Cup if Saginaw didn't end up making the playoffs, because that hasn't happened since the Hamilton Dukes when they hosted the Memorial Cup. I think it was 1990. That was when Eric Lindros was with the Oshawa Generals. But this Saginaw Spirit team, they're loaded. They're a great team. They got the likes of Michael Misa already with Zane Parekh. Parekh, of course, he's probably going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 draft pick at the OHL draft this summer. But yeah, that game on Friday is going to be that's going to be a good show there between the Saginaw Spirit and the London Knights. I think it's going to be a ton of fun, and I think the London Knights are still going to add. That's just a hunch that I have. I feel like the London Knights, they've got some great depth. They're right now on a 9-game winning streak. They're on quite the heater, and I think they're probably going to look to add Caleb Lawrence. He's a big body. I think that's a good addition. He doesn't score as much as you would hope, but I think the London Knights are going to make things interesting. They're also slowly catching up to the Kitchener Rangers in the Midwest Division. As I just pull up the standings right now, Kitchener 56 points, and the London Knights with that 9-game winning streak, they're now within 3 of first place in the Midwest. So the London Knights, they're pouring it on. That's a team. I was down at the game when Barrie was there last Friday, and I was really impressed with the Knights. They create those turnovers. They're very opportunistic. The highest scoring team for shorthanded goals in the Ontario Hockey League, and Denver Barkey, he's a turnover creator. Like he's a takeaway machine with that London Knights team. So I think the London Knights, they're a threat. So you got to watch out for them too. With Saginaw making all of these moves and losing a lot of picks, you might think Parekh will get traded next season to get their picks back. Yeah, I think for the Saginaw Spirit, they're going to be doing a lot of unloading, I think, next year. And that's the joys about junior hockey. You take a couple years to build up, you get the talent, you get the picks, and that these deadlines, you go all in with the buys. And then, you feel it the next year and a couple years after, because we're experiencing that right now with the Peterborough Petes and the Sarnia Sting to an extent. Although Sarnia hasn't sold off as much as I thought they would. They did that one trade with North Bay, sending the LeBlanc twins to the battalion along with Vilmanis. But that with junior hockey, that's the cycles. Although what's going to be fascinating with the Saginaw Spirit next year is with Michael Misa, because of course he was given that exceptional status. Next year, say the Saginaw Spirit are hovering, maybe around 7th or 8th in the Western Conference. Do you trade Michael Misa, and how much do you get for Michael Misa? Because he's going to be a top draft pick in his draft year, which is next summer. So not this summer, but the summer after. So you have to wonder, Zane Parekh, you can get a lot of picks back for him. Michael Misa, he's going to be available. So I think for Saginaw, they're going all in. They want to go in through the front door with the Memorial Cup this year, but it's going to be fascinating to see how do the Saginaw Spirit handle next year's season and the trade deadline. Although I know they've traded away a lot of their picks. Like they gave away 8 picks in that Jorian Donovan trade with the Brantford Bulldogs. It'd be interesting to see if they can find a way to still be competitive in the Western Conference. But I kind of have my doubts, and they'll probably be a team that's going to sell next season. So still no moves. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. Just checking my messages. So yeah, Saginaw is going to be a fascinating one next year. Will you be attending the Mem Cup? And have you ever attended a Mem Cup game? I would love to go to the Memorial Cup this year since it's in Saginaw. The Dow Event Center it's one of the fun rinks to attend in the Ontario Hockey League. If you ever get a chance to go on the road, I would always suggest the Dow Event Center as one of the stops you should make. But I think they're going to have a great show down there. I think they're putting a lot of the teams in Frankenmuth, which is, I think, 15 or 20 minutes away from Saginaw. Frankenmuth, if you've never heard of it, it's a Bavarian style of town. I was there a couple of years ago with my wife, and it's kind of like a party atmosphere, but not as flashy as like a Vegas or Niagara Falls, but still. So Saginaw, I think they're going to put on a great show. I would love to go down there. I would obviously have to take off work because I had to take work off today to be able to do this live stream. I feel like when I was a kid, when I was younger, NHL Trade Deadline Day, I would find a way to stay home from school so I could see what's going on with the trades. But as to have I ever been to a Mem Cup game, I've been to one. The year the Kitchener Rangers hosted the Memorial Cup, so 2008, we ended up getting tickets to go see the Gatineau Olympique versus the Spokane Chiefs. That game had Claude Giroux. He was playing for the Olympique, and Tyler Johnson was playing on the Chiefs. Then you also had Tokarski in net for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I was able to go to that game. That one ended up being the Chiefs eliminated the Olympique. And it was a cool atmosphere just seeing the other fans from the Quebec League, from the Western Hockey Leagues. Quebec fans they're so passionate. It's a lot of fun just to see them there. That was also the year when the Chiefs, they won the Memorial Cup over the Kitchener Rangers. And during the presentation of the Memorial Cup, the trophy fell apart, if you remember that. If you haven't seen those videos, you should look it up. They're on YouTube, easy to find. Just look up Memorial Cup fail or just the 2008 Memorial Cup. If you look that up, I'm sure you'll find the video where the trophy just disintegrated in the hands of the team. So because now if you notice, whenever they do the Memorial Cup presentation, they're usually doing like a pep talk about how to properly hold the trophy, because it is a little awkward because you've got the square base and then the little cup on top with the little 2 hockey men. And it's, I guess, held by like one little screw at the bottom. And that's just, it's soft spot. And that's where they found it. And then the trophy just disintegrated. So yeah, that was the 2008 Memorial Cup. So that was a good year. That Kitchener Rangers team was something else. They bought in. They had who was all on that team? You had Nick Spalling. You had Matt Halischuk. They also acquired Steve Mason from the London Knights that year, but Mason ended up getting injured. And Nazem Kadri was on that team. That was because of that year, they ended up changing some of the trade rules in the Ontario Hockey League, because the Kitchener Rangers and London Knights made a trade where the Rangers acquired Steve Mason, the goaltender, and they said, after the playoffs, we'll send you Nazem Kadri. And because of that, the league wanted to get away from those kind of trades where you're saying, okay, we'll take this guy, but we'll give you this guy later. So the league said enough of that, because it was getting a little crazy with the teams promising players to go back and forth. And we saw that in the 2008 trade between the Kitchener Rangers and London Knights. And that was it was a pretty big trade at the time, because Mason was outstanding with the London Knights, and he came over to Kitchener. He played maybe a handful of games before he got hurt. And then was it Josh Eunice? I think he was the goaltender at the time for the Kitchener Rangers. And the Rangers that year, they just bulldozed their way through the playoffs. They played the Plymouth Whalers in the first round. That was a sweep. I think I went to game 1 and the Rangers beat the Whalers 10-0 or 10-1 or something like that. And then they played Steven Stamkos and the Sarnia Sting in the second round, and the Rangers plowed their way through them. And then they played the Sioux Greyhounds in the conference final. Jake Muzzin was on that team with the Greyhounds. And did that series go 5 games, or was that also a 4-game sweep? But either way, the Rangers just plowed their way through. And then they met the Belleville Bulls in the OHL final in 2008. And that one, the Rangers were up 3-0 in that series. But the Belleville Bulls with PK Subban in the lineup, they had Mike Murphy in net, Sean Matthias. They ended up forcing a game 7. There was also a situation at the Yardman Arena where a fan lit a Kitchener Ranger fan's jersey on fire in the crowd. So it got literally heated in that series between the Kitchener Rangers and the Belleville Bulls. But the Rangers ended up winning that series in game 7 and went in through the front door for the Memorial Cup that season. But unfortunately for them, the Kitchener Rangers went all the way to the Mem Cup final and then lost to the Spokane Chiefs. And then that's where the trophy fell apart. So long story short, yes, I've been to a Memorial Cup game, and I would love to go to a Mem Cup game this year in Saginaw. So if I could find a way, maybe I'll end up down there. Well, who knows? I got my passport ready just in case. So it is now past 9 o'clock. So we have now less than 3 hours to go for the OHL trade deadline. Still waiting for our first move of the day. We had so many trades earlier in the week. Yesterday was just insane, the amount of trades. I don't think I've seen an overager trade deadline day as busy as we did yesterday. And I'm almost wondering if that might take some of the momentum out of the final day of the OHL trade deadline. You never know, although I think we'll see a few depth moves involving the teams. So right now, just taking a look, not seeing anything coming up. And then, of course, the OHL action gets back underway tonight. The Barrie Colts, they're going to be traveling to Erie tonight. They're playing the Otters. From what I was told, the Colts are staying in Niagara, St. Catharines. They were down there last night. So Marty Williamson and the general manager, staff, and all that, they've got their little war room down there. So they're going to be traveling from St. Catharines to Erie. And it should be a good game because the Erie Otters, they've been quiet. They're a team that's desperate to snap their playoff drought. They haven't been in the playoffs since they were in the 2017 OHL Championship against Mississauga. And I did the interview with Sean Bednard. He's the play-by-play guy for the Erie Otters. And he was just saying how this team they want to make the playoffs. They want to snap that drought. And right now, the Erie Otters, I think they're 7th right now in the Western Conference. Yeah, 7th right now, 38 points. So they've got a good buffer, but you would think that for the Erie Otters, they might want to add. But then there's also the questions, do they sell? You've got Mishiak. He could be traded and get a good haul. Look at what Edward Chalet got yesterday for the Barrie Colts. So Mishiak, I think if they make a sell, he could be one. He's the Chicago Blackhawks prospect. But I think for the Erie Otters, they're probably thinking more so they want to make the playoffs. So they might add some depth. They did that Charlie Burns trade with Niagara last night. But I don't think that's really going to be a factor for Erie because for Erie, I think Burns will probably be something for the future is what they're probably going to go for. Because looking at their lineup right now, the Erie Otters, they are a team to watch out for next season. They are loaded. You've got Kerry Torrance. He is sensational. You've also got Dylan Edwards, Malcolm Spence. Then you got Brett Brissett. I know he's an overager. He's actually from Midland, Ontario. He's a great player too. I'm glad to see he's going to be finishing his year there with the Erie Otters. Andre Molnar, I know he's an import, but he's a great talent. So this Erie Otters team is going to be something else. And I haven't even mentioned the first overall pick from last year, Matthew Schaefer. I know for some fans, they had these high expectations for Schaefer to get points and whatnot, but he's a defenseman. It's going to take time. Even when Aaron Ekblad had his rookie season as an exceptional talent, it took him a bit to get going. So for Schaefer, he's going to be something else, another year of development for him. And then you look at their goaltending. They picked up Ben Goudreau from the Sarnia Sting earlier this year. Goudreau, a very solid goaltender, probably one of the better goaltenders in the Ontario Hockey League. So Charlie Burns isn't going to make the lineup there. You also have Jacob Gibbons. I know he's a rookie this season, so maybe for Burns, he's probably going to be depth. So potentially he comes up. Maybe we'll see some ice time with the Erie Otters. we'll have to wait and see. But I do like the direction the Erie Otters are going in. If there's a team that you're wondering who could be next as an OHL champion, it could be the Erie Otters in maybe 2 or 3 years. We could be looking at a rematch of the 2017 OHL final when it was the Erie Otters and Mississauga Steelheads. Maybe, because I think the Mississauga Steelheads, they're going to be really good next year. They've got, Porter Martone, Angus McDonnell. The trades that Mississauga did last year are paying off in spades. Because remember, they sold off at the deadline because the Sarnia Sting really wanted to go all in. That it's a team that never made it past the second round of the playoffs in the franchise history. So they were going all in. They got in Dean Del Mastro and Luca Del Bel Blues. That team was looking stellar. So they wanted to pick up anything they could. And then they sent Martone and Angus McDonnell to Mississauga. So a trade right now is a win for Team A, but Team B wins it down the road. And I think that's where we're seeing it now with Mississauga, with McDonnell and Porter Martone. Those two are such talented players. And that Mississauga Steelheads team is they're going to be a threat. Mississauga might be the top team in the Eastern Conference next year. And also, you could also probably put an argument too for Oshawa for next season. They've got a good lineup too, but Oshawa, of course, I think they're looking to make a push for the East Division for this year. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating. It is fun seeing this time of year, just the moves that, there's teams that are buying right now for this season, but what are some of these other teams doing as they look to the future? With all the trades that Niagara has made, do you see Ryan Robrick staying long-term? That's a great question because his brother Dylan Robrick played for Niagara and then ended up getting traded to Oshawa. The Niagara Ice Dogs are just, I don't get it. The fans in St. Catharines, they deserve better. The way things have been there's no chance for chemistry to be developed. They're just trading everybody on a whim. Like, look at that Brody Crane trade they did the other day. They picked up Brody Crane from the London Knights, but with, I think it was like 2 third-round picks and Chris O'Flaherty and a 4th. And then they send Crane, after he only played 11 games, to the Guelph Storm for, a 6th-round pick? It basically felt like Niagara was just giving away Brody Crane. So it's, who knows, with Ryan Robrick, they could flip him for draft picks, or maybe they'll want to be in buy-in mode now. And I don't know. I'm so confused by the Niagara Ice Dogs. It's really too bad. I know they had the new owner, DeBobler. He took over from the Burks when the Burks, they ended up having the problems with Billy Burke and that they had the issues with the staff member. The league got involved and did all these sanctions and suspensions. So the Burks ended up selling the team to Bobbler with Wayne Gretzky got involved. And I know Gretzky was like a minority owner. From what I've heard, it sounds like Gretzky's not even a part of the ownership group anymore. I haven't been able to confirm that, but still, Niagara just seems to lack direction. They want to win now, but they don't give it time for the team to gel. They don't allow it to have the chemistry, because they do have some great players like Kevin He. He is so much fun to watch, and it's really too bad that I don't think he gets as much attention because he is playing with the Niagara Ice Dogs, because everyone right now, it's Niagara, or when they come to town, it's like, okay, this will be a win. It's Niagara. But Kevin He, a great talent. And I also, Ryan Robrick, a great talent as well, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Man, we're only 9 o'clock, and I got to make sure I don't lose my voice. But so the OHL trade deadline day is today at noon. Still waiting to see our first trade of today. So I at this point yesterday, I think we had our first trade when Jabril Toure was sent to the Windsor Spitfires. But we'll see what happens here today. And if you're a Barrie Colts fan, we had the big trades yesterday. It seems like the Barrie Colts might be done for today. I don't think we'll see any more trades involving the Barrie Colts. But time will tell. We'll have to wait and see. Because it's got to be hard, because if for Marty Williamson, if someone gives him a call and was like, hey, we'll give you 8 draft picks for so-and-so. Like say I think Bo Jelsma would be a player that teams would really be interested in. I'm not saying Jelsma is going to get traded because I think he should be the next captain of the Barrie Colts. But if a team like, say, London offers 8 draft picks and a prospect, how do you say no to that? Because it's right now your team's already building for the future. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think London would do that. I'm just using London as an example because I think the Knights are probably going to do something today. Not sure what they'll do, but still, the Barrie Colts, they seem to be done, but we'll have to wait and see. That's the joys of trade deadline day. You know, you figure one thing and then you get a surprise in the other. So it's we'll have to wait and see. So we're still refreshing, and we'll see what happens next. So yeah. If not, we can just continue to share stories about OHL hockey. You can let me know in the comments section your thoughts on the predictions for the playoffs this year. Who do you think is going to win the West? Who's going to win the East? What's your take on maybe what team do you think could be the surprise, the dark horse? Let me know in the comments, and we can get a discussion going because we're still waiting for our first trade of the day. So, yeah. And then we also already know that Owen Beck's off the board. He was the big fish of the trade deadline this year. It seemed as though that was an interesting situation for Owen Beck because Jeff Merrick first tweeted that the Sioux Greyhounds were the favorite. And then Merrick also then tweeted that Saginaw was the favorite. And then I was hearing that the Sudbury Wolves were also involved. There was also the Kitchener Rangers who have expressed interest. Basically, any team that was competing was expressing interest in Owen Beck, but ended up being Owen Beck to the Saginaw Spirit. So not too much of a surprise, but I was kind of hoping as things were delaying that maybe the trade would happen on trade deadline day. We'd have something exciting to follow along with, but that was not meant to be. The Peterborough Petes managed to trade him away, and we'll have to wait and see. If the team stays as is, which Colt will be exciting to watch? You know what? I'm really liking the play of Cole Beaudoin. Cole Beaudoin has been a great center for the Barrie Colts because last year he was the 10th overall pick 2 years ago. Yeah, that'd be 2 years ago now. That first year, last year, it seemed like at times he was having issues adjusting to the league. He's a big body. He just seemed like he was trying to go to the net. He wasn't able to get his stick on it, but he was developing, and you could see that development. And I think because of that, he wasn't getting as much attention from scouts. And then he was invited to the Hlinka Gretzky tournament last summer, and then he kind of put himself on the map. And since then, Cole Beaudoin has been a lot of fun seeing his development. I think he's going to be one of the leading scorers next year. I think next year will be a big year for him. He should be drafted probably in the first, I'd say, second or third round of the NHL draft this summer, Cole Beaudoin. And he's going to be, he's quite the talent. He's going to be a lot of fun. So I think he'll be exciting to watch as his progression continues up to the NHL draft in June. Do you think Sudbury is done trading? I would not be surprised if the Sudbury Wolves maybe add some depth. I think their big moves are done. Getting Zachary Giroux was huge. I'm glad to see that Giroux is getting a chance to play at home in his overage season. It's from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Giroux was promised by the Flint Firebirds that they would try to move him to Sudbury by the OHL trade deadline if they're not competitive. I don't know how factual that is because I don't see why a team would make a promise like that because if you get a better offer from another team, but then again, if you got the no trade clause, you could say, well, Ottawa 67s would like your services, and you can say no to that because you want to play for a specific team. But I think Giroux is a great addition for the Sudbury Wolves. I really like Noah Van Vliet. He's going to fit in quite nicely on that blue line. So for the Sudbury Wolves, I think they might be done. Although with that log jam in the crease right now, do they move Krawchuk? That would be my question because the Kingston Frontenacs, they could use a backup goaltender. before the overager trade deadline, it sounded like there was a chance that Anton Thornton could have ended up with the Kingston Frontenacs, but they ended up going with Jax Dubois from Peterborough instead for their overager slot. I would think for the Sudbury Wolves, if there's going to be a trade, it may involve a goaltender moving out. So maybe keep an eye out on Krawchuk. I like Krawchuk. I still don't understand the situation with the Sudbury Wolves and their goaltending. Because you have Jakob Vondras. I know his numbers haven't been that great, but he is a pretty good talent. He's been drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes. So Vondras, I think, he's underperformed, but I think you had a good going with Vondras and Krawchuk. Although Vandenberg, winning goaltender of the month and also goaltender of the week, he's a good goaltender too. So they've got now 3 capable goalies in their system, and I would not be surprised if maybe the Sudbury Wolves, that might be where they make their move. We'll just have to wait and see on that front. So it's, still no more trades being added, just waiting for confirmation. Also, what's your guess on the teams to join Saginaw in the Cup? Oh, that's a tough one. It sounds like to me the Quebec League, the Baie-Comeau Drakkar have been a solid team, and it's now the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League. They've looked really good. If the Drakkar could get in, that would be great. That's actually a community I'd love to go to see a junior hockey game, because it's a small barn up there. The fans there are so passionate. I think it was Nathan McKinnon, I think, who was drafted by the Drakkar, but then said he wouldn't report, so ended up getting traded to the Halifax Mooseheads. So it'd be nice to see a small town team like the Drakkar maybe join Saginaw at the Memorial Cup. If the Spirit win the Western Conference, it'd be kind of fun to see the Sudbury Wolves get a chance. And the West, the Prince George Cougars, they look pretty good. The Moose Jaw Warriors, another solid team. They've done a couple of big pickups. I think it'd be fun if all 4 teams at the Memorial Cup this year came from centers that don't usually make an appearance at the Memorial Cup. So if you've already got Saginaw, they've never made it to the Memorial Cup before, so this will be their first time. If you can get the Baie-Comeau Drakkar to somehow make it, that'd be a lot of fun. Sudbury, I think it'd be great to see the Wolves have a chance. And Moose Jaw or Prince George, they're kind of like that more remote team in the Western Hockey League. They've had a really good season, so it'd be kind of fun seeing those teams. Yeah, there's the Moose Jaw Warriors. Yeah, they've got a good chance of winning the dub. And the problem is I don't usually get a chance to follow too much of the dub or the Q. It is great hockey. The trade deadline there in the West, though, it's like the Wild West of trading, because they can I believe it's the West where they can trade their first round picks. And I kind of like the rule in the OHL where you're not allowed to trade those first round picks. You're kind of saving the general managers from themselves. Because could you imagine at the trade deadline, the amount of first round picks teams would be throwing away, and then they'd be down in the bottom? Like, I think in the Quebec League, it's the same way. The St. John Sea Dogs, since winning their championship, they've been at the bottom of the pack. But of course, it's junior hockey, so it's a cycle. They'll figure out a way to come back. But it's wild what they do in the West. Braden says, I want to see Portland. Yeah, the Winterhawks would be fun. It's been a few years since the Winterhawks were back in the Mem Cup. And yeah, they do give away their first round picks like candy. It's insane how the trades work out there. But I guess every league's different. It'd be nice if the Canadian Hockey League was kind of the same across the board, because you do see, look at the whole controversy in Quebec with banning fighting. In the dub, in the Western Hockey League, physical play is huge out there. They're all about the rough stuff. And then the OHL, they've got the cap and the amount of fights that you're allowed. So it's really interesting, but it's kind of too bad that things aren't the same across the board, because the last 3 Memorial Cup champions have now come from the Quebec League. And you almost have to wonder, is that because of the rules or the way they do the trades or whatnot? But it would be nice to see everything the same across the board. Okay. So, still waiting for that first move. So, yeah, the last trade still showing the Niagara Ice Dogs sending Charlie Burns to Erie for that 10th round pick. So we're at 50 minutes in the live stream. This has actually been, I wasn't sure how this whole live stream thing would work out. I've never done a live stream before, but this is neat. So thanks for everyone so far taking part in the conversations, and hopefully we'll have a trade that we can discuss. I'm still holding out hope we're going to get a flurry of trades, kind of like we did yesterday, but it's just great to be able to sit and talk hockey, because I love junior hockey. I've now been covering the Ontario Hockey League since the 2007-2008 season, when the Niagara Ice Dogs joined the Ontario Hockey League. That was my first year. We had a college radio show that we did called the Not So Roundtable. And my roommate and I, we would go to all the Ice Dog home games, and we'd do a show once a week talking about Niagara. So that's where I actually got my start. So it's kind of nice just to be able to once again chat junior hockey. And it's the trade deadline. It's one of the more exciting times of the year, just to see what teams are going to be buyers, which teams are sellers. And for this year, I think we got it going pretty quick. I think once the Owen Sound attack did that trade with the Peterborough Petes, it kind of opened the floodgates as the trades just started pouring in. Yeah, so it's coming up to 9:30. Right now it's 9:21. Another team I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen a lot of moves from. I already talked about the Erie Otters, but another team that hasn't done a lot, the Oshawa Generals. They're a team that, if you've seen my power rankings video, they're number 4 in the power rankings because they've just been red hot. They went into Saginaw and beat the Spirit at the Dow Event Center 5-1. And the Oshawa Generals so far, just the one trade, and that was with the Barrie Colts picking up Connor Punnett. And I think for Oshawa, they're obviously not going to be sellers. I don't see why they would want to be sellers. They've got a great lineup. Callum Ritchie, since he came back from injury, that team has really turned it around. I'm really liking the looks of the Oshawa Generals. So a team I'm kind of surprised hasn't made any sort of movement as of yet here at the OHL Trade Deadline, just that one move. But we'll have to wait and see. Jacob Oster, he's been something else in net of late for Oshawa, and the Generals are just, I think they're going to be, maybe they're a team that could also look to add a backup goaltender. They've got Noah Bender. He's a 2006. So maybe you add another goaltender for the Oshawa Generals. Noah Bender's story is actually kind of cool because he played Junior C last year and was playing for the Wellesley Applejacks. I love that team name. But he ended up helping that team win the Sutherland Cup over the Stanner Siskins. And so it's pretty cool just to see the story of some of these players and just how they've made their way to the Ontario Hockey League. And for Noah Bender, he's been the backup goaltender for Oshawa this year behind Jacob Oster. So maybe that's a team that might look to add a backup goaltender. I know we talked about Nate Krawchuk going to maybe Kingston, but does Nate Krawchuk maybe go to Oshawa? You have a 1-2 punch for goaltending with Jacob Oster and Nate Krawchuk. So anything's possible, but I think for the Oshawa Generals, that's a team I'm a little surprised we haven't heard too much from, although they've done a great job with their trades. I like the Connor Punnett move, also getting in Lockhart from the Peterborough Petes. They did that trade back in November. I like the look of Oshawa, and I think next year the Generals should be an even better team going forward. But we'll wait and see. I think Oshawa is a team that might look to do something. We'll just have to wait and see on that front. All right, so still no trades coming up. Still not seeing anything here either, but we'll have to wait and see. It is kind of cool how on social media we now get the teams wishing the congrats and the best wishes to the players who depart. Even the videos of the Barrie Colts have been putting together of late, just putting the montages together for Frasca, Punnett, and Thornton as they were moving out. It's a nice touch that we get to see now on social media, because these players, a lot of them are fan favorites of fans, and Like I even know when like my son, he had hockey last night, and when he found out that Connor Punnett was traded, he was a little upset because Punnett was one of his favorite players. But that's the thing about hockey that's hard is these players, they make relationships in the community, and you don't want to see these guys go, but at the same time, getting a chance to play on a team that might go on a run, like Jacob Frasca playing for the Sioux Greyhounds, is a great opportunity for him. And I think for him, he's going to enjoy that time with the Greyhounds. Although this time of year in Sault Ste. Marie, usually not the greatest weather. I remember a couple games because I used to work doing the Sudbury Wolves games, and we'd roll in there. It'd be the middle of February, and it's cold, it's snowing, and it's almost like minus 30 when you're getting on and off the bus. And but the Sioux fans are so passionate. It's a great facility, the GFL Memorial Center, a great place to catch a game. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Sioux, the fans there love seeing visiting fans when they're up there. And they kind of get excited. So then they can talk about the Greyhounds, and they want to make sure you have a safe drive and safe travels. And if you're staying overnight, they're like, hey, you should try this restaurant out. You should try it at this place. And so the Greyhounds community, it's something else. And also in the media room, which is really cool, is that there's a couple of older ladies who make homemade soup for the media and scouts, which you don't get anywhere else in the Ontario Hockey League. So it's a great organization, the Sioux Greyhounds. And I think Jacob Frasca, he's going to love it up there. It's going to be cold. And and Blaker's saying there's a huge snowstorm right now in Sudbury. So we're kind of getting a bit of it here in Barrie right now. And the joys of January and February. If you could call an NHL game right now, which two teams would you pick? And go Generals. Okay. Yeah, you General fans. See, I know C.A. Gilroy, so I know I can give her a hard time about the Oshawa Generals. But if I had to call a game today for the NHL between two teams, I don't know. That's hard. I would love to call a Leafs game. Toronto would be fun. I'm also a Panthers fan, believe it or not. I know there's not many Florida Panther fans, but I would love to call a Toronto-Florida game just because I like those two teams. But for talent-wise on the ice, I think it'd be great to call a Connor McDavid game again. I did it with the Sudbury Wolves when he played for the Erie Otters, and I got to meet Connor because we did an interview with him. He was so laid back and just so casual. So McDavid, calling another McDavid game would be a lot of fun. But I think I would take any NHL opportunity if an opportunity came up. It could be at the Mullet Arena in Arizona. I would love to call that game. It'd be a ton of fun. So, yeah, but we'll have to wait and see. McDavid, epic. Yep. Yeah, he's Connor McDavid's a cool guy. And actually my wife, she's a teacher in Bradford. She teaches music down there. And her colleague, apparently she lives next door to McDavid's parents. So apparently they've had an ice rink that they have in the backyard, and her kids have been able to play hockey with McDavid and their family. So it sounds like the McDavids are a really cool bunch. And it's great to see the OHLers excelling at the National Hockey League level, even, for Connor McDavid just lighting it up. And we'll be able to see that too with some of these other OHLers who are in the league right now. It's just really cool just to see that development and see where these players go. So looking at it, the OHL website's still not posting anything new. We might be looking at the most quietest OHL trade deadline on record. That's almost what I'm thinking. The year I decide to start a channel and I'm like, hey, I'll do a live stream. The OHL trade deadline is always fun. And then we don't get anything. But you know what? That's okay. We'll have to wait and we'll see. There's got to be at least one or two trades that come through at some point. But time will tell. But so it's coming up to 9:30 now. We're an hour into the live stream. We're going until, the deadline's noon, and then we might get a few trades after. So we'll play it by ear. We'll see how long after 12 o'clock we keep the live stream going. And yeah, it's really quiet after the busy OA deadline. It's last night. It was just a flurry of trades, and even after 12 o'clock, it's like, oh, I guess the Barrie Colts didn't do anything. We'll wait 15 minutes and see if anything comes up. And I think it wasn't until 12:30 we found out that Connor Punnett was off to Oshawa. And then I don't think we found out about the Anson Thornton trade until after 1 o'clock. So it's the league offices. I think they were just inundated with trades yesterday. It just took a while to get anything going. But right now it's 9:30 and still waiting for the first trade of the day because we'll see how this all goes out. Because the last few trades, I've already talked about the Charlie Burns, the other trade that happened last night, the Barrie Colts and Kitchener Rangers making that massive trade. Edward Chalet and Olivier Savard going to the Kitchener Rangers, and coming back, Kyle Morey and Blair Scott, and then 8 draft picks. As the Kitchener Rangers, they've been quiet. Mike McKenzie taking his time here at the trade deadline and pulling off probably one of the bigger trades so far this season, picking up 2 players and then giving up 2 players, which is, I was looking at the 2 players, Morey and Scott. I didn't realize they were both Kitchener natives until I was looking at their stats. And it's kind of too bad because if you're from the Kitchener area, you want to play for the Rangers. The Rangers are such a big deal in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. So I'm kind of curious as to their thoughts as to being traded away from their hometown team. But still, for Morey and Scott, they'll get the ice time. They're going to get their opportunities. And, Kitchener doing a good job. I think Edward Chalet will probably fit in quite nice with that Kitchener Rangers team, who are stacked. Carson Rakoff continues to be on fire, and Hunter Brustevich leading the league in points. And it'd be something else if Hunter Brustevich could become, if he ends up winning the scoring race for the OHL, he'll be the first defenseman to do that since 1989 when Brian Fogarty did it with the Niagara Falls Thunder. This could be a historic year for Hunter Brustevich and those Kitchener Rangers. So we'll have to wait and see what transpires there. But I think it's a good pickup. Edward Chalet and Olivier Savard. Savard, he's a great shot blocker. So he's going to, I think, help out Kitchener on that front. We saw they went on the road last week to Sudbury and North Bay, and the Rangers were up 4-1 in that game against the Sudbury Wolves and kind of let up. And then the Sudbury Wolves just took over, ended up winning that game 7-5. So defense is something that Mike McKenzie was looking to address, and picking up a guy like Olivier Savard. He's not a big name defenseman in the OHL right now, but when you could pick up these depth guys, this is, your blue collar kind of players. That's what Olivier Savard is. He's not afraid to block shots. He'll get the job done there on the blue line for the Kitchener Rangers. So I like this pickup for the Rangers, but for the Barrie Colts, getting those 8 draft picks and just looking at it, Saginaw's second round pick from 2026 is in there. And we talked about Saginaw earlier about how that team is probably going to look to rebuild for the next couple of seasons after this run to the Memorial Cup. So that second round pick from Saginaw has the potential to be pretty high in 2026. So the Colts could use that as a trade piece either next season or the season after if they're looking to improve their lineup or to buy. So it's very, I think Marty Williamson did a great job on this trade as well, getting those assets back, which will help the Barrie Colts in the long run. I think when they look to bounce back following this season, which has been a little disappointing with the injuries and just not able to get the wins, because on paper, this Barrie Colts team looked pretty solid, especially when they went out and they picked up Riley Patterson from the Flint Firebirds, and then they also got Edward Chalet to commit, and then Anson Thornton after his great run last year. It just looked as though this team was in the right track and we're going to be maybe competitive in that Central Division, but just things not working out. So it's kind of nice to see the Colts kind of pivot here, recoup some of these picks, and then use that in the future. But it'd still be nice if the Colts could make a playoff spot. However, if you're going to finish 8th in the Eastern Conference, it looks like right now, Barrie would probably have to play the Sudbury Wolves in the first round, and that would not be easy. Although I think it's always fun when the Barrie Colts and the Sudbury Wolves go at it. It's probably one of the more underrated rivalries in the Ontario Hockey League. I'd probably vote that as one of the top 5 rivalries in the Ontario Hockey League, the Barrie Colts and the Sudbury Wolves. So what are we seeing here? When do you think we will see Hillebrand back in net? From the sounds of it, Sam Hillebrand should be back in the net tonight against the Erie Otters. I would think Hillebrand gets the start tonight and then tomorrow go back to Ben West. But then they play Brantford on Saturday. So I would think Hillebrand will probably get the start Saturday night, and then there'll probably be a ceremony to recognize him getting the gold medal with Team USA. But Hillebrand, he's back with the team, and I would think, yeah, he should be back. I would expect him to be back in the lineup tonight for the Barrie Colts down in Erie. Apparently, both Kitchener and Bo Akey have known each other for 10 years. Oh, the two Kitchener players. Yeah, because Bo Akey, he's from Waterloo. So they've all quite familiar with one another. So, the new Kitchener guys, being from Kitchener, they'll know Bo. And you've got that familiarity. And I think that's going to help. And it's really too bad about the situation with Bo Akey. But, maybe next year, you got to figure he'll want to come back. He'll be pretty determined when he gets back in the lineup, and he's obviously going to go back to Edmonton, work with the Oilers, and get his season back on track. But for next year, Bo Akey should be back with the Barrie Colts, and then getting a chance to play with Maury and Scott. I think that's probably going to be pretty big for them. I think that's probably a good point, especially with him knowing those two. So that's going to be I think that should be a good factor. So I'm just going to refresh this. Yep, still no new trades. Still pretty quiet. Maybe around 10. I think it was 10 o'clock yesterday we started hearing more trades. So less than a half hour to go, and we should maybe start to hear some things. But we'll keep things. We'll keep an eye out and see what's going on around the OHL. And yeah, we should get something soon, I would think. But in the meantime, we can continue to talk hockey and just fill us some time here as we get ready for trade deadline day. It's actually going to be, as I mentioned, the OHL season gets back underway tonight. The Erie Otters, they're home to the Barrie Colts. And we also have the Owen Sound Attack. They're going to be in Flint tonight. So for the Flint Firebirds, they made all those moves yesterday. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. The London Knights are in Sarnia tonight. So there was some fireworks at the end of the last meeting between those two teams. And that rivalry for the 402 that's another rivalry that's up there. It doesn't get as much attention. Those two teams met in the Western Conference Final last year. And it's nice to see just the intensity there between those two teams. The Sudbury Wolves, they're in action tonight. They're taking on the Mississauga Steelheads. And after that game, then Sudbury goes on the road. They're going to be in Sarnia and Windsor this weekend. So the one home game this week for them. And then the Saginaw Spirit with all their new additions who should be in the lineup. They're going to be in Windsor. It's going to be interesting to see how the Spitfires handle the Saginaw Spirit as they've got Jorian Donovan back in the lineup now. We're going to see Owen Beck for the first time. And and then they also picked up Aiden Castle from the Windsor Spitfire. So Castle playing against his former team, although I think Aiden Castle is probably more of a depth player, maybe fourth line, or he'll be an extra player in the press box, but we'll have to wait and see on that front. So those are the games tonight. Erie and Barrie, Flint, Owen Sound, Sarnia, London, Sudbury, Mississauga, and then Windsor, Saginaw. So once we get past this deadline, then we know that we are in the final stretch towards the postseason. So this is a big point in the regular season. Once we get the team rosters settled down and we get to know what teams are looking like and what teams are looking to the playoffs and what teams are looking towards the postseason. Most memorable call of a Barrie Colts game, the Michigan. Yeah, the Brant Clark goal last year in the playoffs against the Hamilton Bulldogs is probably up there. Although I really liked the being able to call the Anson Thornton goal. That one was tons of fun. I've never called a goalie goal before, so getting a chance to do that that's probably up there. I would probably lean. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think they're both up there, the Michigan and the goalie goal. But that whole series was so much fun. The Barrie Colts and the Hamilton Bulldogs last year that went 6 games. Just the drama in that series, and just it just seems as though for the Bulldogs and the Colts, they're in opposite divisions, but they've generated such a great rivalry. So it's always fun when those two teams meet. they're going to meet this Saturday. I don't know if we're going to see as many fireworks, but still, I think that's probably, and that might even go down as one of my favorite playoff series to call, was between Barrie and Hamilton last year in the first round. Although that Barrie North Bay series was also pretty good. But you can't go wrong with playoff hockey. Even if the team's in 8th place and they play the first place team, I think it's still pretty fun to be able to call that. Wonder about some of the team chemistries. Saginaw almost bought a whole new team. Rangers struggled with this last year. Yeah, Josh, I'd agree with that, because we've seen that in the past with teams where they buy in. Like, look at the Windsor Spitfires last year. They were the first place team in the Western Conference, and then they play Kitchener in the first round, and they got swept. And it kind of comes down to that chemistry. You need the guys to be able to come together, to play well, and to figure out systems. And so yeah, that would be a bit of a concern with the Saginaw Spirit. But when you've got that mindset where you're just trying to get as many talented players as you can, it does become a problem, because you can only play 3 forwards at a time and 2 defensemen. You can't play 10 players on the ice all at once. So some players are going to get more ice time than others. How's that going to affect the players who are already on Saginaw? Do they see their ice time reduce? And how are they going to feel about that? So chemistry is going to be a very interesting thing with the Saginaw Spirit. And I think the approach Kitchener is kind of taking, I think it's a good approach. You're only adding Chalet and Savard, who already have played together with the Barrie Colts. Those two kind of understand where each other comes from, because Savard, he does that great breakout pass out of the defensive zone, and he's done that quite a bit with Chalet being with the Barrie Colts. So you do have at least that chemistry already going into it, and then you're only adding 2 players to the roster. So I think the Kitchener Rangers may have done things right with maybe the one big trade, but when you do have these teams just adding and adding and adding, it can be a problem. So we'll have to wait and see. And also, we've seen it so many times in the past. Like, I can think of a handful of teams where they brought in some big name players, and then how do those players even feel? Because there's sometimes you get a player that gets traded, they might not have necessarily wanted to be traded, or maybe they're thinking about the AHL because they get paid more when they go pro. So is their heart in it when they get traded to a new team? So there's a lot of factors to consider. I know it's different with the Saginaw Spirit, because that team's going to play for the Memorial Cup, but I'm thinking of teams like Ottawa. They've added quite a bit. The Flint Firebirds, they've added a lot. So how are the players' hearts going to be in it? Are they going to want to fight for a playoff spot? Are they going to want to have the season extended? So chemistry is a pretty big deal. It's real, and we'll have to wait and see what strategy works out best. So yeah. So we're still waiting for our first trade for today. Maybe we should take bets. What time do you think we're going to get our first trade of the day? One more question before I have to go to work. If you could interview any player, dead or alive, who would you interview and what would you ask? That's a tough one. Any player. I would probably want to interview Johnny Bower. Yeah, because he was in net for the Toronto Maple Leafs when they won that cup in '67. Probably ask him what he would think if the Leafs never won a cup again. See what kind of reaction you get from that. So I think I'd probably lean towards Johnny Bower. And I've heard great stories about Johnny Bower, about how he was such a great person to be around. And what's crazy too, is he lied about his age. So it made it sound like he was younger than he was. So he could play for the Toronto Maple Leafs and play professional hockey. So Johnny Bower seemed like he was a great character. And I think if I had a chance, that'd probably be the player I'd want to, I would have loved to have had an interview with. So Blaker says, there's a new rumor I just heard about Lavoie to London. Well, Zachary Lavoie would probably be a good pickup there if the London Knights could do it. And that is the Niagara Ice Dogs, I do believe. So for Niagara, they're known for making those unique trades. So if that does transpire, we'll have to wait and see. That'd be a very interesting pickup, because Lavoie, he is a great talent. Let's look at his numbers. Let's bring up Zachary Lavoie, because I think because the London Knights, I do believe they're going to add. They're going to add something today. It's not going to be like a big pickup that's going to be earth-shattering. I think it's going to be for depth purposes. And Zachary Lavoie, he right now 13 goals, 8 assists, 21 points with Niagara. I think Lavoie would be a very interesting pickup. He's been, looking at it here, he's been with the Ice Dogs for just over a year now because he was picked up from the Mississauga Steelheads last season. With the way the Niagara Ice Dogs operate, I guess maybe it's time for him to move on. I'm just joking, of course, but still, you never know with this Niagara Ice Dogs team. So Lavoie to London, that would be an interesting pickup. And London and Niagara, they just, I don't know, they have each other on speed dial. They just love doing trades with each other because the Niagara Ice Dogs kind of became the London Knights light because of all the former Knights that were playing on the team. Although Ryan Humphrey ended up leaving. He went to play for the Green Bay Gamblers. And then you had Brody Crane. He ended up being traded to the Guelph Storm. So Owen Flores, he's still there with the Niagara Ice Dogs, but it sounds like there's maybe a possibility that Flores gets moved. But seeing Zachary Lavoie end up in London, I could see that working. I'd be curious as to what goes back the other way. Do the Knights give up just draft picks? Do they give up a young player? I'd be actually kind of curious as about how that one would work out. But so let's just see. I'm just trying to pull up some other stats and other information as we're just waiting for that first trade to come through. Yeah, still nothing official has been posted yet, but we'll get there. I think it's amazing how quiet the trade deadline is today, but it will. You have to figure it'll pick up. It's got to pick up, right? But but we'll see. It is a fun time of year. The speculation has been rampant about teams and just seeing what teams are going to add, what teams need, and what the playoffs and whatnot. So I would not be surprised to see a move or two. Are you ready to call a new Colts team Saturday? Well, I hope so. It's going to be, I mentioned this in the video when the Barrie Colts picked up Thomas Stewart from the Oshawa Generals. You've got Thomas Stewart, and then you've got Bodie Stewart. So you've got two Stewarts down the lineup. Then you also have Nolan Newton and Jaden Newton. So if you put the Newtons together and the Stewarts together, it's going to be a tongue twister and just trying to remember, okay, which one's Patrick, which one's Thomas, which one's Nolan, Jaden. I think I'm ready to call the new team. It's going to be, I think it's exciting just to see where this team could be going in the future. So, still waiting for a trade to talk about. But let's, so we talked about the last trade with Burns. We talked about Chalet. The Justin Dozodi trade, that was the third trade ago. That was between Guelph and the Sioux. That one, bit of a head scratcher because with Justin Dozodi, he was one of the big pieces last year in the trade between Peterborough and Mississauga because the Peterborough Petes, of course, they acquired Owen Beck from Mississauga to go on their run for the championship. And Van Volsen and Dozodi, they were the two pieces that went back to Mississauga. So a lot of, excitement about those two players. Van Volsen, he's had a bit of a slow start. It just seems like things are a little off with him. But then Dozodi, Mississauga traded him earlier this year to the Guelph Storm. He's still looking for his first goal of the season, I believe. And then now the Guelph Storm have flipped him to Sault Ste. Marie. So it'd be nice to see Justin Dozodi get his game on track. Playing in the Sioux, he'll probably be a depth player. I don't expect to see him getting probably a regular shift. If he does, maybe fourth line minutes because that's a Sioux Greyhounds team that's looking really good heading towards the postseason. So that trade, it almost feels as though Guelph's maybe just trying to give him another opportunity. There's a lot of speculation as to will Matthew Poitras come back to the Guelph Storm. They're still waiting for Cam Allen to come back from injury. At the start of the year, it sounded like he should be back by the end of November. Then it was early December. And now it's he'll be back sometime before the end of the season from the sounds of it. So Cam Allen would be a huge addition on the back end, although he hasn't. It's almost been a year since he was last on the ice and for regular action. So for Cam Allen, if he could come back, it'd be huge. But it's going to take him a while to get his game legs back, which is going to be a problem. Which for these young athletes, I don't think it'll be as hard as it would say be for you and I just to be able to go out there and do that. But Cam Allen, it would take him a bit. But if you can get Matthew Poitras back, that would be a huge addition without having to give up any assets. So the Guelph Storm, another team there in the West that's in the thick of it, because you do have, you've got Kitchener, Sioux, London, Saginaw, and Owen Sound. So those 5 teams have already bought. But if the Guelph Storm end up starting to buy, if they get Matthew Poitras, it's that 4-5 matchup, and then potentially the 3-6 in the first round could be some pretty exciting hockey come playoff time in the West. So we'll wait and see what the Guelph Storm do. But yeah, they've already picked up Xander Vecchia. So Vecchia kind of will take away or will fill in for Dizzotti. And I like Xander Vecchia's play. He's been great with the Mississauga Steelheads these last few seasons. And whenever I get to call a game with Mississauga, Vecchia seems to always be involved in the play one way or another. So I think Guelph Storm fans are going to love the play of Xander Vecchia. But I think Vecchia replacing Dizzotti. So that's probably why we had that move. But still, would love to see Dizzotti be able to get his game going. And I think maybe in the Sioux, he'll get that chance as a depth player. But still, he's a younger talent. And it'll probably just take him a little bit to get used to that system. So where are we at? We are at 9:51 already, and we're still waiting for our first trade. But thanks for everyone so far for tuning in on this OHL Trade Deadline Day live stream. I wasn't sure how it all work out, how many would tune in or take part. So thank you already for those who have had questions or comments, and just to get this discussion going. So it's exciting to see, and it's encouraging, because I started this channel back in August, just thinking it's a fun little side thing to do to the Barrie Colts broadcast as an extension, because there's not a lot of OHL coverage in Barrie, because we do the games on Rogers, and then Gene Pereira, who's my color guy, he writes articles on Barrie 360, and then we get the odd article with Barrie Today, and that's it. There is not a lot of media coverage with this Barrie Colts hockey team, so I thought maybe it's something extra, do a YouTube channel, because I feel like YouTube's a growing media when it comes to sports coverage. You're starting to see a lot more streaming. I know the PWHL, which just got started, they're looking to do more streaming, and YouTube, I think, is probably the way to do it. So social media. So it's a great outlook to see how this is going. And I just appreciate everyone so far for taking part in this live stream so far, as we continue to wait for our first trade of the day. This live stream is now at an hour 23. We've almost been an hour and a half waiting for our first trade. But if Blaker's right, maybe we'll see a trade between London and Niagara. It's very possible. We'll have to wait and see, but still nothing to report there on the board. Yeah, we'll give it some time, and hopefully we'll get something. But it also, just looking at really even social media has been kind of quiet in regards to potential trades, but we'll have to wait and see. It's been an unusually quiet trade deadline day, but it should be good. But not really seeing much being posted. No, not even the person I've texted with. They've said they're not hearing much. The one message I received saying, don't expect anything from the Barrie Colts. They should be done. And yeah, I think there's probably a few smaller trades to be done, maybe involving teams like the London Knights, maybe the Oshawa Generals. Another team that's been quiet, we talked about earlier in the live stream, with the Erie Otters. Are they going to do something? They've only added a young goaltender with Charlie Burns. Do they look to add? Do the Sudbury Wolves make a move? I'm kind of leaning towards they don't do any more additions. They may trade a goaltender at some point today. We'll have to wait and see. But other than that, it's seeming pretty quiet out there. But yeah, we'll just have to give it some time. It is, it's almost 10 o'clock, which means the trade deadline, it's just over 2 hours away. So we'll just continue to chat, hang out, and wait for the trades. There's got to be something that's coming down the pipelines. But it's not. But yeah, it's going to be good. Maybe the trade office is closed because it was a busy day yesterday. Maybe they're sleeping in today. Maybe they were just so busy yesterday with all the trades that came through, and it's possible. We saw how many trades after the 12 o'clock deadline yesterday. So it's been busy there at the league offices. They've been handling a lot of trades. I'd be curious to know if this is one of the busier trade deadlines on record. Like, I haven't counted how many trades there have been so far, but it almost feels like this might be a record-setting year for trades. Got to jump out for a dentist appointment. Oh, that does not sound fun. But on a departing thought, would love to see Florian Jacki from Brantford to Kitchener. Oh, there's a Florian Jacki would be a great addition. He kind of plays like his brother Arbor Jacki, and you know Jacki started in Kitchener before he went to the Bulldogs. So have both Jackis have a chance to play for the Bulldogs and Rangers organizations. We'll have to wait and see. Florian Jacki is an interesting one. I've heard some speculation about Sudbury as a team that was looking at Florian Jacki, but I don't know if that might still be the case. But Jacki to Kitchener, that would be because the Kitchener Rangers, they haven't been playing a very physical game of late. And when you're playing in the playoffs, you want to have that physical presence. So if you can get a guy like Florian Jacki, he would probably fit in nicely with that Kitchener Rangers team. Do you think Jonathan Malee gets traded? Well, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't been traded yet. There was a lot of speculation about would he go to the Sudbury Wolves? Would he go to the London Knights? There was talk that Malee was supposed to be added in the McCoy trade, but not sure if that's true or not. That's the thing about this time of year. You can read so many different rumors and speculation. And even when you talk to people in the media and whatnot, you hear things, but it's like things can change so fast and you don't exactly know the stories about what's happening. So for Malee, I'm kind of surprised the Petes haven't sent him off yet, but they still need bodies to play. Like, they still have to finish out the regular season. So we'll have to wait and see on Jonathan Malee, because his stats, if I remember correctly, are not too shabby with the Petes. Because I do like the play of Jonathan Malee. Let's look that up. Jonathan Malee is a 2004, so a potential overager for next season. So you got to figure if you're going to go for a trade for Jonathan Malee, that's going to be quite the pickup. He's got 12 goals, 20 assists, 32 points in 35 games. Already playing better numbers than what he had last year. So Jonathan Malee, I could see him being a possibility. He did start his career with the Hamilton Bulldogs before being traded to the Peterborough Petes. I believe that was a part of the Mason McTavish deal, if I remember correctly. So Malee, I think, would be a good pickup. Maybe he goes to a team in the Western Conference. We'll have to wait and see. What team do you think that will make the playoffs that is not in the playoffs now? And do you think Barrie makes the playoffs? I'm leaning towards the Colts should make the playoffs. I think they're a team on the outside that has, I think, more potential. The Niagara Ice Dogs picking up Anson Thornton. It seems like they think they can make the playoffs, even though they're 8 points out. The Barrie Colts right now 3 out. And the Peterborough Petes, they've unloaded quite a bit. So I think the Barrie Colts could make the playoffs. I don't think they'll get any higher than 8th. It'll be a challenge to catch the Oshawa Generals and the Kingston Frontenacs. So I think the Barrie Colts, they could do it. And we saw it last year. anything is possible. You just have to make it. We saw the Kitchener Rangers as the 8th seed. They swept the Windsor Spitfires in the first round with the biggest upset in OHL history, it seems like. And I know people are going to say that was different because the Kitchener Rangers, they bought at the trade deadline. They were supposed to be a good team last year. But I don't know. We'll have to see. Do you think Patrick Thomas gets traded from Hamilton as well? It's possible. I think for the Brantford Bulldogs, they've shown that they're selling. I think they kind of felt forced to trade after seeing what the Ottawa 67s did. Ottawa picking up, of course, Kressler and also getting Sam Maillet. Because the East Division right now, it's so wide open. Brantford right now, they're first in that division. And if they could get more assets, you trade Thomas, because he's a great talent there with the Bulldogs. I haven't heard anything yet. There's been no buzz about Patrick Thomas, although I never heard anything really about Jorian Donovan going to Saginaw. That felt like a trade that came out of nowhere. It was just basically Dave Drinkle from Saginaw said, hey, we'll give you 8 draft picks. And Brantford was like, hey, we can't turn down 8 draft picks. And a lot of those are pretty good draft picks too. So I think anyone at this point could be traded. Of course, Patrick Thomas, he's that Washington Capitals prospect. He's had a decent season so far for Brantford. So it's possible. And I think a lot of teams would love to have his services. He'd make a great overager next year. So it's hard to tell. He only has 9 goals this season, but still Patrick Thomas, a good talent there with the Bulldogs. So we'll just, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what teams would want to offer up. So still nothing to report on trades as we're now at 10 o'clock. So we are now less than 2 hours to go until the OHL trade deadline. This has been the quietest deadline day I have seen in a long time. But with all the trades that we had, it's kind of, is there anyone else who's left to be traded? We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it's been a fascinating trade deadline. And I think the factor too is that the Memorial Cup is in the OHL this year. So I think that's kind of why we're seeing things the way they are. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm wondering too if the Kingston Frontenacs might be a team that looks to add. They already picked up Jax Dubois from Peterborough, an overager. And since they've made that coaching change, they've really turned it around because the Troy Mann, he's been getting that team buying into the systems and they've made the changes. And I think for Kingston, they're a team that is looking to buy. They put in that bid to host the Memorial Cup this year. And I know there was a lot of questions. Would Kingston be a competitive team this year? And I think they're starting to show that they can be a competitive team. And I would not be surprised if they were looking to add. So it's, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah. So not really seeing much. There's not even much rumors going on right now on the socials. It's been, I think the trades with Saginaw kind of took the wind out of the sails because we were kind of waiting to see would Owen Beck be the big trade today. But obviously that didn't happen. Oh, we do have a trade now. We have a trade between the Guelph Storm and the Oshawa Generals that's come through. So Zachary Sandu, he's been traded to Oshawa for 3 draft picks, Mississauga's 3rd in 2025, and then a 5th and a 9th. So Zachary Sandu has been traded to the Oshawa Generals. So not a huge move. I'm just kind of figuring if we had any trades today, they'd be a lot of depth moves. So the Oshawa Generals have added Zachary Sandu. So let's pull up Sandu's stats. It's not going to be, there he is, a defenseman. He's a Toronto native, 2005 born, Zachary Sandu. 3 goals, 2 assists this season. When the Guelph Storm were in Barrie, it didn't really stand out too much. He's maybe a project or a depth player for the Oshawa Generals, unless this is to make room for Cam Allen. maybe we can get that rumor started. Maybe Cam Allen is about to come back to join the Guelph Storm. So it took us an hour and 34 minutes, and we now have our first trade. So Zachary Sandu is now a member of the Oshawa Generals. So it sounds like it's a depth move for Oshawa, or maybe those picks could be flipped for another move. Because if the Guelph Storm know they're going to be getting Poitras back, that has not been confirmed. We haven't heard anything official on that. But if they have that sense that he could come back, do you look and add? We've already had some questions about Arbor Jackeye, or could he be a player that could be coming, could be made available? But yeah, I think this is curious. I think George Burnett, the general manager of the Guelph Storm, he's known for making some big moves at trade deadline day, and maybe this is something that could be developing. So Zachary Sandu, now a member of the Guelph Storm. So that's two players they've now sent away. They did the trade with Sault Ste. Marie last night, sending Justin Dezodi to the Greyhounds for a draft pick. And now they've sent Zachary Sandu to Oshawa for 3 picks. So we'll see what this leads to. But we do have our first trade. So we did it. We got a trade. If the Barrie Colts make the playoffs, who do you think the Colts will play first round, and how far do you think Barrie goes in the playoffs if they make it? Round matchup, I think that would be an exciting series to call, and for the fans, because whenever those two teams go at it, it's a physical game, and a physical playoff series would be great. If you haven't seen, I think it was 2013 was the last time we saw the Barrie Colts and the Sudbury Wolves meet in the playoffs. I think we're well overdue for a Sudbury-Barrie meeting in the postseason. However, I don't know if the Barrie Colts make it out of the first round. This is a year, I think, where the Colts want to get that experience, get the younger guys some ice time. Although I think Kayshawn Aitchison is a player who is meant for the playoffs. We kind of saw it in the playoffs last year for the Barrie Colts. Shamar Moses, he's a big body. I think he is a player for the playoffs. So anything's possible, although maybe it goes 5 games, 6 games. It'd be tough. I think for the Barrie Colts to play Sudbury probably would not end too well. But the Barrie Colts have been really good on home ice. It's fascinating just to see how different the Barrie Colts are from being on the road to being at home. They only have 3 wins on the road all season, which is remarkable. And then at home, we saw them beat Sault Ste. Marie the other night. They took Kitchener. They came back against Kitchener in that game just before the Christmas break and lost in overtime. They beat Mississauga in a comeback in overtime. They've beaten Owen Sound. Like, the Barrie Colts do a great job on home ice against the top teams in the Ontario Hockey League. But when they're on the road, it's just something, this team looks totally different. So if the Barrie Colts don't have home ice advantage in the playoffs, it's sure they could win their 3 home games, but if you can't win on the road, it's going to be tough. So I think for the Barrie Colts, I don't know what they have to do to try and figure out how to play on the road like they do at home, because if they could start to figure that out, well then, yeah, the Barrie Colts, I think, could string some wins together and maybe they could push for home ice. I think that's highly unlikely, but I think it's going to be, I think the Barrie Colts will make the playoffs. And right now, I think they would end up 8th, and then they probably play the Sudbury Wolves. Although Sudbury, is there going to be a chemistry issue with the Sudbury Wolves now that they've added some players? So time will tell, but we'll have to wait and see on that front. So still just the one trade, the Zachary Sandu move to Oshawa. So just waiting to see if there'll be other moves. So yeah, not seeing too much. I think this is a good pickup for Oshawa, getting Sandu, just adding that depth. And for the Guelph Storm, having those picks, because that 3rd round pick is 2025. So they could use that in another trade to maybe flip it to get someone bigger. But we'll have to wait and see. I'm curious about that move, because I was almost wondering if the Guelph Storm would be looking to add more after picking up Xander Vecchia yesterday. Because that was I think that's a great pickup for the Guelph Storm, getting Xander Vecchia, because Vecchia, he's a great setup guy. He's got the legs. He's really offensive minded. But Guelph Storm sending Sandu to the Oshawa Generals. So wait and see on that front. Still not seeing a whole lot going on in other markets. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that the Barrie Colts are probably not making any more moves. They should be done, but you just never know. If Marty Williamson gets an offer for somebody that he can't refuse, then he kind of has to take it. But we'll have to wait and see. So, yeah. So we're less than 2 hours to go now until the trade deadline. We've got one trade so far. It'd be nice to have some more trades to talk about. I think we're going to be getting some soon, but nothing to confirm at this point. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think not even getting really much of anything suggesting otherwise. But yeah. Bam. Thanks for tuning in for the live stream so far. It's been great to have the conversations and being able to talk OHL hockey. And it'll be next will be to prepare for the OHL playoffs to see positioning, who's going to take what, who's going to be the team to beat. And we'll go from there. It's going to be, I think it should be a good run. The Western Conference, of course, we already touched on that. They are stacked. You've got 5 or maybe even 6 teams that could challenge for the West. Although right now, I think with the way the moves have been, Saginaw, Sault Ste. Marie, Kitchener might be the 3 teams to beat right now. In the West, London, they did the one pickup with Caleb Lawrence, the Owen Sound Attack, picking up Connor Smith and Sam McHugh. And then Guelph, they picked up Xander Vecchia. It's not going to really turn the needle on that, but we got like 6 teams right now in the West, which is we kind of saw that last year in the Eastern Conference, where it seemed like the power was in the East, where you had the Ottawa 67s, you had the North Bay Battalion, the Colts, the Petes, the Wolves. Those were the 6 teams last year that were kind of like, yeah, these are the competitive ones. And then we saw those teams all be buyers to an extent. But this year now it's the top 6 teams in the West, which look like they've got the power. So, and I do like the look of the Owen Sound Attack. Carter George is a great goaltender. I cannot talk enough about George. He's capable of stealing a round or 2 for the Owen Sound Attack, and having Connor Smith and Sam Sedley together, I think, is a great defensive pairing. And then you've got Colby Barlow up front, and then you've got Sam McHugh. And I do like the look of the Owen Sound Attack team. They're a team you can't take lightly. I think their thing is they're just trying to get the consistency. They need to get their consistency together, play a full 60 minutes, and that team, I think, could really get things going. And I'm almost wondering if they add maybe a depth player, would they go for a guy like Jack Eye, or would they look to Patrick Thomas? Obviously, the Brantford Bulldogs are not going to give up those players for cheap, but if they're available, and we've seen Donovan now move to Saginaw and Van Vliet to Sudbury, so would Jack Eye and Stewart be made available? We'll have to wait and see. Nothing's been confirmed. There's nothing really suggesting it. I know Blaker earlier mentioned talk that maybe there's a trade involving Niagara and London with Zachary Lavoie. Nothing has come up of that, but Niagara has been surprisingly quiet these last 2 hours. They seem to always want to make trades, especially with the London Knights. They haven't done a London Knights trade now in 2 months. So something's missing. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. Do the Niagara Ice Dogs make another appearance with a trade? But right now, we're just waiting to see what transpires, and we'll go from there. So it's now 10:14. So an hour and 45 minutes now left in the OHL trade deadline. And let's look at some of the past trades. And let's talk about the Brantford Bulldogs and Sudbury Wolves trade. I like this move. Noah Van Vliet going to the Sudbury Wolves. Before the Donovan trade, I figured Van Vliet, there's no way he's going anywhere because he's a great defenseman. He's got a great hockey sense. He's such a smooth skater. I did not think he would be a player that would be made available at the OHL trade deadline, but it seems as though with Jordan Donovan going to Saginaw, he became available, and now he's going to man the blue line in Sudbury. So I love this pickup for the Sudbury Wolves. Noah Van Vliet, he's going to be an impact player there. And of course, with Jabril Toure being traded to the Windsor Spitfires yesterday before the overager deadline, Van Vliet kind of will fill that void. But he's not as big as Toure, but he's still got some size to him. And then going the other way, Owen Protz. He's a younger player. For Protz, with the depth on that Sudbury Wolves team, he just wasn't getting the ice time that you would want for a young talent like Protz. So I think going to Brantford should be able to help him out in his game. And then you also got the 3 picks going to Brantford. And the picks Brantford has been picking up have been fantastic. 2 second-round picks in that trade, a 2026 and a 2027, and then a 3rd-round pick from 2027. So it's really a great pickup there for the Brantford Bulldogs. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to have to look at it here. I think a couple of those picks were involved in a trade earlier. I'm not seeing it, but maybe not. But either way, I think that's a great pickup for the Sudbury Wolves, getting Noah Van Vliet. He's a great talent there, and it's really too bad that Brantford's kind of selling. I understand why they're doing it because they're looking for the future, but if they could manage to get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs, the Brantford Civic Center is going to be insane. Like that atmosphere. I was there for a regular season game when the Colts were in town, and just the passion those fans have. They are so excited to have OHL hockey in Brantford, and I hope that Brantford is able to stay on the OHL circuit going forward. There's plans to build a new arena next door to the Civic Center, which would have over 5,000 seats, and just the passion the team has. It really reminds me of when the Niagara Ice Dogs started in the OHL, because they moved from Mississauga to St. Catharines, and just the passion that the fans had there. It was quite remarkable, and it's kind of carried on from the Jack Gatecliff Arena days, because it was a small Junior C barn that the Ice Dogs were playing out of. So much fun. It felt like the fans were on top of the ice. And I was actually at the first game at the Jack Gatecliff Arena. Actually, I think I might have the puck. This one here. So that Niagara Ice Dogs puck is from the first game at the Gatecliff Arena. So it was a lot of fun. They had Alex Pietrangelo on that team, Luca Caputi, Stefan Legion. It was a great atmosphere, and it was a good run. So I'm really hoping that for Brantford, it kind of develops into that too. So we're waiting to see if the Bulldogs will move back to Hamilton once the renovations are done at the First Ontario Centre. However, from my understanding, the renovations haven't even started in Hamilton yet. The Toronto Rock playing there again, despite they were told they were going to have to move, but they ended up staying because the renovations have been delayed. So it seems like Brantford will keep their team, but time will tell. So we'll just I'm been monitoring the city council stuff with Brantford, because the mayor there has been really open about how excited he would be to have this new arena built. And I think it's going to be fun. If the Brantford Bulldogs can get home ice advantage, that could be a difference in the first round of the playoffs. I don't think Brantford's going to go on a deep run for the playoffs, but still it'll be good. Oh, you should show the jerseys in the background up front for a second while we wait. Yeah, we could do that. So first, I've got my Belleville Bulls. That was actually stuck. My wife, she's a seamstress, so she's got this mannequin thing, and I was like, can I use it? So I put my Belleville Bulls jersey on, because the lighting with this camera doesn't do it justice, but the Belleville Bulls jersey, this one's my favorites. I'm a jersey collector. I've got how many do I have now? I have over 45 jerseys. I collect NHL and OHL. This is not all my OHL jerseys. I have another Belleville Bulls upstairs. I have their white jersey. I also have a Sudbury Wolves blue, Niagara Ice Dogs black, and I think that might be it. And then over here is my Barrie Colts. So because I call Colt games, I figured I should have a Barrie Colts jersey. It's a classic. I do like the fact that the Barrie Colts don't have a word mark on their jersey. So it's just the logo with the horse. What's really neat is that the Barrie Colts, since they joined the OHL, they have not changed their logo. So they're coming up on their 30th anniversary. I think that's next season. So we'll wait and see if they do a 30th anniversary jersey. So the Barrie Colts is a classic. And then this one hiding kind of behind. This one's an old one. It's my Kitchener Rangers jersey. You'll see here it's got the old Kitchener Rangers star. They don't do this anymore, but this is back in the Reebok days. So I got this one when I went to the Memorial Cup because it's a classic. Rangers blue, New York Rangers. Yeah, those are the jerseys I've got hanging out here. Whoa. So so those are the three jerseys I have down. But yeah, I love jerseys, and I figured might as well put them on display. So maybe next time we do a live stream, I'll have to bring a few more. But those are the ones I thought I'd have in the live stream. And then these are just some of the pucks that my son and I collect. Every time he goes to a new OHL barn, he likes to pick up a puck. So we've got Sault Ste. Marie hiding here. We got Kitchener, and then there's Brantford. You'll see the B, and then the Niagara Ice Dogs puck and Peterborough Petes. And what's cool, I don't know if they did this on purpose. Let me bring it here. But you'll notice that the Bulldogs, because they're in Brantford, have the B. So that's what's on their shoulders. And when the Belleville Bulls played, they had the horned B. So it's almost as if we've got the connection between the Belleville Bull days and now Brantford. So they brought back the B on the shoulder, which I think is a great touch. It's a great touch, and it's nice to see the Bulldogs recognizing some of their history with the city of Belleville. So, yeah, I'm still looking to get the yellow version of this jersey. That one is hard to come by, but I always liked the yellow Belleville Bulls with the red bull on the front. So one day maybe I'll find it. I'm also trying to get a Plymouth Whalers jersey. If you remember the Whalers, they had nice jerseys. Their logo is so fun. Although I don't think you'll ever see a whale in the city of Detroit. So it's yeah, I'd like to get a Plymouth Whalers jersey at some point. So just hitting refresh. We're still waiting for more trades to happen. Dylan asking what trades have happened so far. We've only had one trade so far today. Just the one trade between the Guelph Storm and the Oshawa Generals. Zachary Sandu has been traded from Guelph to Oshawa. And going back to the Storm, we've got a third, a fifth, and a 9th round pick. So the only trade so far, I'm kind of wondering if that trade may lead to something else. But I have not yet received any confirmation on that. So it might be a bit. Of course, that would happen. There we go. So I'm just browsing on the social feeds, and if you're a Barrie Colts fan and you follow, say, the Sioux Greyhounds, they've posted an image of Jacob Frasca wearing the gray or the Greyhounds red practice jersey. So Frasca looking not too bad in red. He looked better, I think, in blue. But Gavin Hayes and Jacob Frasca. Let's see if you can see that. Look at that. So Jacob Frasca. It's kind of weird seeing him in the Greyhounds red, but he's made it up to the Sioux safely. So he'll make his Greyhounds debut this weekend. The Greyhounds, I don't think they play until Friday. They're going to be taking on the Guelph Storm. So I'm just looking ahead at the schedule. Yeah, it's going to be the Guelph Storm. They're going to be in Sault Ste. Marie on Friday. So Jacob Frasca will make his debut there, along with Gavin Hayes, who's getting a chance to play with his brother Travis. I always think it's pretty cool when brothers can then play together in junior hockey. So Gavin Hayes going to Sault Ste. Marie from Flint, so he's going to get a chance to play with Travis Hayes. And it's also cool too when players can go back to their hometown, like Zachary Giroux being traded to Sudbury. I think that's a nice touch when players can do that. I'm curious about the new guys with the Colts. Yeah, the Barrie Colts adding some new faces. They've got 2 new overagers. You've got Brendan Cirizzotti. He's got 14 goals this season. So Cirizzotti, he's known for finding the back of the net. Hopefully he can continue that with the Barrie Colts as they try their push towards the playoffs. And then you got Thomas Stewart. He's more of a stay-at-home kind of defenseman. Doesn't have a lot of points, but it's good to have bodies back there, especially with Olivier Savard and Connor Punnett moving along. So those 2 overagers should fit in quite well with the Barrie Colts. And then the 2 players, Morley and Scott, who they picked up from Kitchener, both younger players. I think they're going to be a good addition for the Barrie Colts. It's good to have that young talent to go with the draft picks. There's going to be growing pains. It's going to take a bit for these players to get used to the systems, but I believe these players should be in the lineup tonight with the Barrie Colts. Let me just try and confirm that. But I think the new guys will be in the lineup. Hillebrand, he's back from the Worlds, so he should be back in the crease. Now I'm just going to send a message to figure out about the new guys. But still, it's going to be great to have just to see what these guys are capable of and see if the Barrie Colts can maybe find a way to squeak into the playoffs. That the 8th spot, it might be up for grabs after Peterborough did all their unloading, but we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, wow, we're already coming up to 10:30. So time is flying, and yet we still only have the 1 trade to report. And yeah, maybe we will see some different chemistry. It's going to be, I think it's going to take a bit for these guys to gel and to get understanding of the systems. And we do see that from time to time that it does take a bit. All right, so I can confirm that for tonight's game, everyone is going to be in the lineup except for Brendan Cirizzotti. Cirizzotti is not back in time, but we'll have to wait and see. So maybe Cirizzotti might be in the lineup Saturday when the Colts take on the Bulldogs, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, chemistry is going to be an interesting thing just to see how these guys gel. And yeah. Oh, and maybe we'll see you there, Dylan, on Saturday. It's always fun when the Bulldogs and Colts go head-to-head. It should be a fun game. And I always look forward to when the Bulldogs come to town. It'd be nice if they did a throwback to the Bulls. Maybe they should do the Bulldogs head in red, kind of like this. It'd be nice to see a little more throwbacks. We're getting that more at the NHL level. We're seeing it in other sports where you get throwbacks. It'd be kind of nice if the OHL did a few more throwbacks. That's the jersey collector nerd in me. I love jerseys. Like the Owen Sound Attack with those Owen Sound Grays, the barber pole jerseys. Those are fantastic. If I could get my hands on one of those, that'd be great. I don't have any Owen Sound Attack jerseys yet. Don't tell my wife that because she probably wonders why I collect so many jerseys. But that Owen Sound Grays barber pole jersey is fantastic. And my understanding is for the Attack, all they had were black and white photos of the team. And they actually had to like dig deep and try and figure out, okay, what colors were they? What kind of orange was it? So they had to really go into the vault and to find what this jersey looked like. So they didn't have any of the jerseys from 100 years ago when the Owen Sound Grays won the Memorial Cup. But they did their homework, and those Owen Sound Gray jerseys, pretty snazzy for the Owen Sound Attack. And Dylan says that he loves the Beaudoin, York, and Patterson line. Yeah, that line is fantastic. They have developed some great chemistry. That's that line. They just don't stop moving. Riley Patterson, I've been so impressed with him. If you haven't seen the interview I did with him, I caught up with Riley Patterson. He actually played a few years playing lacrosse. He played rep when he lived in Montreal. So Riley Patterson kind of taking that skill set of lacrosse and he's now putting it into his game today, especially if you notice him whenever he's around the net. He's really comfortable just being there with the puck in tight and finding players in front. He's had some great setups for Cole Beaudoin and vice versa. So yeah, that line doing a fantastic job. Kyle says, I am one of the 3 assistant equipment managers for the Barrie Colts, so you will see me at the game on Saturday. Oh, sweet. Oh, that's exciting. Maybe, yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for you there, Colin. Blaker says, I wish the Wolves did the green and white wolf for a game. You know what? I agree. And for the Sudbury Wolves, because their history, they've got the green and white. Although I've never seen a green wolf, but man, does it look good on a jersey. So yeah, I agree, Blaker. It'd be nice to see the green and white jerseys brought back. I remember when I was covering the Sudbury Wolves and they introduced those for the anniversary year. Those were so sharp. So it'd be great to see the Sudbury Wolves bring that back. They do have those new third jerseys that say Sudbury Wolves in the blue and gray. I think I need to see that one in person because the pictures, I'm not too sure if I'm excited about. And then you got the Robo wolf on the shoulder, which almost looks like a fox. So I'm not too sure about the Sudbury third jerseys. It'd be nice if I think it'd be great if some of these OHL teams would wear their third jerseys on the road. The Owen Sound Attack did that New Year's Eve where they wore their black jerseys. Those are also sharp. Although the red numbers on the back, I had a hard time reading when I was doing the play-by-play. It's funny because these jerseys, they look great, but sometimes from your broadcast perspective, it can be challenging to quickly call a player as they're moving it up. I've had that issue with the Ottawa 67s because of the barber poles. It blends in with the numbers on their shoulders or on their arms. So if you've noticed, the 67s now put their numbers up top. So that kind of helps, but at the same time, with all the stripes, the black and red, it can be a bit challenging. So, I would love to see the green and white Sudbury Wolf brought back. So still no new trades. The last one to be announced was the Zachary Sandu trade. So we're still waiting for another move as we're less than an hour and a half away from the OHL trade deadline. This is everything's gone quiet. Let's see. Yeah, same here. He's a captain to be. Yeah, it's I think you're talking about are you talking about Riley Patterson? Right now we don't the Barrie Colts don't have a captain. Now the punnet's been moved. I'm wondering if we'll find out a new captain soon. Riley Patterson. Yeah, I think he could be a future captain for this Barrie Colts team. If I had to vote or whatever, if anyone asked me with the Barrie Colts, who I think should be a good captain, I don't know why they would ask me, but Bo Jelsma, I think he is captain worthy. The guy is just so determined on the ice. We saw that in the game against the London Knights. The Colts, they were down 6-0 in the third period, and he just took the team on his back, and he just took the puck from Ben West, skated up the ice, backhand right under the bar, and got the Colts a little momentum there. So I think for Bo Jelsma, he'd be my pick to become captain. Although Riley Patterson, he'd be a good call. Cole Beaudoin, he does not like to lose. According to Gene, he's talked a few times with Cole after a loss, and he gets a little grumpy. He's another guy that I think has captain material. So Cole Beaudoin maybe down the road. But I think for my pick right now, I'd lean towards Bo Jelsma. He's also a great guy off the ice, very approachable. If you ever come across Bo Jelsma, always say hi because he'll talk. Like he's that kind of person that he's not going to brush you aside. He's not going to be, you're in my way. So, whatever. Bo Jelsma, a great player on the ice and off the ice. And I think he would make a great captain. It kind of reminds me with the Kitchener Rangers 10 years ago when Gabriel Landeskog was there. So that would have been actually the 2009-2010 season. Landeskog, he was in his second year, and they named him captain. And it was because of just his personality. He was so competitive out on the ice, and then off the ice, he would just chat with anybody. He was just a guy that was so friendly and very personable. And I think you kind of need that with some hockey players if you're going to have your leaders. So Landeskog, he was a great captain with the Kitchener Rangers, and it was great to see him being drafted by the Colorado Avalanche. So for me, I kind of compare personality-wise Landeskog with Bo Jelsma. That's my take on it. And so Dylan, you've got that experience with Bo. He's a great guy, and also he's got a good hat collection. He's busted it out a few times. Although Kayshawn Aitchison, he's another guy that's very stylish. So yeah, even the 80s night, the other night, if you saw the pictures of what the players wore pregame, their outfits were pretty snazzy. Riley Patterson, I think he won it for best dressed for 80s night. So right now we are still waiting for a second trade. Maybe we'll just have the one. Maybe Zachary Sandu is going to be known as the trade deadline trade. Maybe that'll be it. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's been a very quiet OHL trade deadline, which some years they're busy. Some years, I guess they're like this. Although I don't really remember it being quite this quiet. This is a very quieter than usual. I'd also like to know if yesterday was a record for trades leading up to the overager trade deadline, because there was just so many moves yesterday. But yeah, but right now, as we stand, just the one trade so far. And so just going through, seeing what we can come across. And nothing coming about. This might be it. I hope not. I hope we get at least one more move. Even if it's, say, Oshawa trading Sandu back to Guelph to have him traded back to Oshawa, so then we can say we had 3 trades. That would never happen. Oh, and Dylan says he has a Punnett stick. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, Connor Punnett. He was another great guy that was very approachable. He's pretty mean and nasty out on the ice, but off the ice, he's a good character. He's a great guy. So yeah, still nothing to report there. Just going through my some of my source material. Yeah, there's just like nothing really doing. I think we were just going to be sitting here maybe talking hockey, or do we talk about the Leafs? They won last night, 7-1. It's a huge win over the San Jose Sharks, but it is the San Jose Sharks, so it's kind of what you expect. You should beat the San Jose Sharks, although the Leafs have been known to struggle against the weaker teams. So it's good to see that Toronto ended up getting a commanding win last night. But we're not here to talk NHL. We're here to talk junior hockey. Junior hockey is where it's at. That's why we have the channel. It's all about focusing on the Ontario Hockey League and just the doings here. And the deadline, yes, it is at noon today. And yeah, we're just dragging along right now with the moves. But you know what? The moves that have happened leading up to it, there have been some great trades. I really, as much as I'm surprised what the Flint Firebirds did, I think Bill Bowler for the Windsor Spitfires has done a great job at the trade deadline. I really like the pickup of Pasquale Zito. Zito, he hasn't played at all this season. He's been at home. The North Bay Battalion kept him on their roster just in case he decided to come back. And from what it sounds like, Zito said he would only go to Windsor. So we'll see if he plays. I know there's conditions on that, so it's going to take him a bit to get back into game shape. The Windsor Spitfires trying to get back into the playoffs in the West. But I do like what Bill Bowler did. Plus, he got some great picks for the Roberto Mancini deal with the Flint Firebirds and also Oliver Peer. Flint, I think they're just trying to save their season so they don't miss the playoffs. That's what it came down to, or at least that's what the trades seemed like. It seemed like desperation. They sold off Zachary Giroux to Sudbury and they sent Gavin Hayes to Sault Ste. Marie, but they brought in Pierre and Mancini to try and make sure they don't miss the playoffs. And for Flint, if they finish 8th, they're going to have to play one of the top teams. They might have to play Kitchener in the first round or Sault Ste. Marie or Saginaw. I guess the gate revenue is what you'd like because then you'd have 2 home games. So you get that extra playoff revenue, but I don't see Flint doing too well in the playoffs. They've really they had that good run there in November after they made the coaching change when they brought in Flash. But since then, the Flint Firebirds have kind of they've been struggling, but we'll see what they can do. Do you think the Colts made good moves? I think the Colts did a good job with their trades. They did a great job getting some picks back. I really like the trade Frasca going to Sault Ste. Marie. Sirizotti, he's known for finding the back of the net. I think he'll fit in nicely with the Barrie Colts. He won't be in the lineup tonight in Erie, but I do like Brendan Sirizotti. They got some good picks back in return for that trade. And then the Connor Punnett deal to Oshawa, maybe they could have gotten more elsewhere, but you need to find a right fit. And with the way the trades were going, maybe Mancini is a comparable with what he got from Flint, but it's hard to move the overagers. So I think the Colts, they did do a good job with getting Stewart back. So you have a body on the blue line. And then for the Chalet deal, 8 draft picks was just, it's unreal what some of these players are going for. And I think the 2 pickups, Scott and Mosley are going to be, I think those are going to be pretty good here for the Barrie Colts going forward. Let's see. So we're still waiting. Yeah, still just the one trade report. A very slow day here. Noah Van Vliet will wear number 2. Giroux will wear number 96, and McCoy will wear number 19 for the Wolves. That's always fun, just seeing what numbers they go with. So that's pretty cool. So Van Vliet 2, Giroux 96, McCoy 19. Don't know if you mentioned the Charlie Burns trade to Erie. Thoughts? Yeah, that one, I'm fascinated by this trade because Charlie Burns is a great young goaltender. And for the Niagara Ice Dogs to trade him for just a 10th, it seems odd to me. And also Niagara picking up Anton Thornton still seems kind of strange. We'll wait and see if Thornton ends up playing for the Ice Dogs. I don't know. I feel like unless there's something that we don't know, obviously there's things that go on behind the scenes that we're not privy to find out about. Sometimes that information leaks, but right now, like Charlie Burns, like he's been playing for the Fort Erie Meteors. He's looked sensational down there in the GOJHL. Yeah, I feel like they're throwing away a future piece that could help them in the long run. They do have Flores and Charlie Robertson to go with Thornton, unless Niagara's counting on Charlie Robertson to be their starter for the next few seasons. So I'm a little confused by the Charlie Burns trade. I think it's great for the Erie Otters. They're a team that's looking to the future. So if Charlie Burns, I think it's going to be a good fit. Because they've got Ben Goudreau right now, who's an overager, so he'll be gone next year. So that might open things up for Charlie Burns to take over as the starter with the Erie Otters. So I think for Burns, I think this is good for him. Not so much for the Fort Erie Meteors, because I don't know if he'll go to Erie now to be a backup or if he'll stay with the Meteors, because they're looking good this year in the GOJHL. Yeah, that's my thoughts. But it's Niagara. Niagara just has been doing so many moves that have been so questionable. Like the Brody Crane trade, trading him to Guelph for a 6th round pick after you gave up a player and 3 draft picks to London to get him. I don't know. But then they did a good job, I think, with the Bronson Ride trade with what they got from North Bay. So they did get some picks back, and then you got Robertson for Ride. yeah, so I'm curious as to what is going on with the Niagara Ice Dogs. So I don't know if there's something else that we're missing in regards to the trade, but that's what we've got right now. So still just the one trade to report. We're now at 10:44, so an hour and 15 minutes left in the OHL trade deadline. Well, I'll just have to wait and see what comes up next. So I'm not really. Sometimes something will sneak on, even with social media. Teams will post things. Like last night, before the Edward Chalet deal was posted, it came out by the Kitchener Record reporter, Josh Brown. He tweeted or X'd or whatever we call it now, the trade last night, saying that Chalet and Savard were on the way, but then quickly had to say, well, nothing's official yet. But then the trade eventually was official. So sometimes you never know. These trades do get announced early on social media. I haven't heard from, I've texted a few people, but they're not hearing too much right now either. It's just really quiet after yesterday's flurry of trades. So there's been a lot of activity leading up to the deadline. And then now we've just got Zachary Sandu to talk about. And we've got the weather. The weather hasn't been too kind in central Ontario, being based here in Barrie, but it's January. It's about time we got some winter weather. So yeah, so now all we can do is just continue to wait, see what comes up next. It's been great to have the interaction here on the channel. So thank you very much for tuning in. It's something different. I've never done a live stream like this before. I'm used to just being on the broadcasts for the Barrie Colts, or at my day job, I work at a radio station here in Barrie. So I'm used to being up early to do the news at the radio station I work at. And then, I get to talk hockey today. So I'm excited. I get to have the day off, talk some hockey with you guys, and speculate away, although there's not much to speculate at this point. I'm wondering why Marty traded Savard. I think for the Kitchener Rangers, they wanted a defenseman because defense, well, they had that hard game against the Sudbury Wolves last week. So I think they're looking for someone who's willing to step up defensively. The Savard, great shot blocker. So I think that's probably why Kitchener wanted him added. And that's probably how the Colts got that trade figured out, because Kyle Morey and Blair Scott, they're going to fit in, I think, nicely with this Barrie Colts team. And then you get all those picks, 8 draft picks. And I think that was a part of it. The Kitchener Rangers, they wanted Chalet's services because they had an open import spot, but they also were looking for defense, because Savard, yeah, he's not a big name, but he's that player who's going to go out there. He's going to block those shots. He's going to contribute those breakout passes. So I think that's why Marty added Savard to the mix. I don't think Marty would have wanted to move Savard because he's going to be a good piece for the future. But considering the return, I think the Colts did not too bad on that. And I don't think Chalet fit in here. Yeah, he was struggling. It was when he had those shootout goals. Those were smooth. Like his shot, he's got so much talent. Edward Chalet. I don't know if maybe he was homesick. Maybe there was just something going on that we don't know about. But it was quite the different player from what we saw with Chalet with the Barrie Colts to when he was over at the World Juniors with Czechia. Because he was going to the net. He got the hat trick in those games, and he was racking up the points at the World Juniors. So it's almost as if, because it was the big stage, Chalet just stepped it up a notch from what he was doing with the Barrie Colts. But yeah, it just seemed at times things were a little off with Chalet. But we'll see how that transpires when he goes to Kitchener with those Rangers. The Rangers are a great team, so we might see a different Edward Chalet for the second half of the OHL season. Yeah, you just never know. But yeah, I think I agree with you, Dylan. Chalet didn't really seem like a fit, or just things weren't going, I think, as planned or as expected. So yeah, still just the one trade. Just the Sandu trade. So we're just waiting to see if something else will come up. I was almost wondering if that Sandu trade might lead to something else, but that doesn't seem to be the case at this point. Everything just seems to be pretty quiet. But yeah, it could probably happen. We've started this live stream at 8:30 this morning, and watch watch us start getting a flurry of trades at 11:45. So 15 minutes left, and then it's like, oh yeah, the office is open, and now we're going to start updating all the trades. So I can't confirm that that's going to happen, but you just never know. You kind of get the sense that maybe there's a few small moves that could happen between now and 12 o'clock, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there's not a whole lot seems to be buzzing right now in regards to the trade deadline or what have you. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't know. There have been so many big moves, but since Owen Sound made that first trade last week, and it just seems as though we had all that momentum from the trades, because usually at the deadline you get that one domino and then all the trades just start coming down, and it almost feels like that's how it worked. We're waiting for Owen Beck to move, and as soon as Owen Beck moved, then everyone started being like, okay, this is the piece we need, this is the piece we want, we're going to bring in this player, and that's just how everything transpired. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, not seeing a whole lot, which is too bad. But at the same time, it's got to be hard for these players, being young players, maybe some of them away from home, and you just don't know if you're going to be changing cities. You're going to have to change billets, you're going to have to change schooling, and just the whole thing that comes with moving, especially when you're a teenager. It's not easy, and I think even with these guys, hearing their names on the internet can be hard. It can be hard when you're like, oh, am I going to get traded? Or, oh, I didn't know I was going to get traded. And it's got to be hard. But I'm sure for the general managers, a lot of them they're being open and honest with the players, letting them know what could happen, what they're working on, and or at least you kind of hope that's what's happening. It's not like you're getting blindsided that, okay, now you're going to move. We're sending you 5 hours away from here. I don't know. And Dylan says, I like the way Saginaw looks. Yeah, Dave Drinkle, the general manager, he said they were going to go all in. They want to go through the front door. And with that lineup, Owen Beck, Donovan, I think those are some great pickups. And they already had Zane Parekh and Michael Misa, Braden Hashay's there, Hunter Haight, a lot of former Barrie Colts on that Saginaw team. We usually see at least a trade a year between the Spirit and the Barrie Colts. But I do like the way Saginaw looks. This is a team that I think will be capable of going through the front door, but they got a lot of obstacles to go through. And if they end up being in the third place team, say Sault Ste. Marie ends up winning that division, you could end up having a Sioux Greyhounds Saginaw second round series. And man, get the popcorn ready for that. I think that would be a lot of fun in the second round, because that's going to be such a battle in the Western Conference. So many heavyweights right now. Even if Saginaw does finish third, they're going to play the sixth place team, which could be, the Owen Sound Attack or the Guelph Storm. So that's not even an even series. So it's going to be fascinating. And I think the Saginaw Spirit, they're looking like a really good team going into the postseason. And I think they might be done. I think they've done their big moves. Getting Donovan, that's going to be huge on the back end. Donovan and Parekh together, that could be an interesting combo, especially on the power play. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. Kyle says, out of all the other arenas you've been to with the Colts this year, what's your favorite arena and you've been to with the Colts on the road? Well, that's a fun question, because I've been to all 20 rinks. But for this year, I've only been to Brantford and London. But I have been to all the rinks, because I used to actually do the radio broadcasts for the Sudbury Wolves. That was like 9 years ago. And I was able to travel and see all the rinks. So I think for the favorite rink, I always like going to Kitchener. It feels like an old Maple Leaf Gardens. You go there, and as soon as you go in the concourse, you smell the beer nuts, you smell the popcorn, and it's just got that old school vibe, which is so much fun. If you've never been to the Odd in Kitchener, that is definitely a great spot to go. I do like going to Sudbury. That's that old barn feeling. It's going to be too bad when the Sudbury Wolves move into their new arena. I know right now they're tearing down buildings across the street to get ready for building a center. The city council in Sudbury has not yet said it's going to be an arena, but I think the writing's on the wall. The Sudbury Wolves, they need a new rink. But I like going there. Sault Ste. Marie is fun. Another one that's pretty good is the Dow Event Center. I like that one. But for the loudest fans, the Erie Insurance Arena, the Erie Otters, their fans, they are loud. It's a fun. I think that's another one that's up there. That's a favorite. Yeah, and then of course the Saddleland Arena. I like the Colts rink. It's a nice one too. It kind of started the modern arena era because that arena was built. It was 1995. It opened, and since then a lot of teams have kind of had their arenas copy what Sudbury or what Barrie has, and because of that, the Colts have not yet hosted a Memorial Cup, or at least that's how I feel. I feel like because the Colts built their arena and all these other ones have come up after, Barrie's just not been able to host a Memorial Cup because then the league looks at these other rinks and sees that they have more seats than what Barrie has, or it flows a little bit better because having the box seats at ice level is kind of strange and very unique. You don't see that anywhere else. You do have like your VIP sections at ice level. They have that at the Dow Event Center. They had that at the First Ontario Center when they were in Hamilton. But the Barrie rink, very unique. But I still like the atmosphere in Barrie when the fans get going. I know there's been a lot who say that maybe Barrie fans are a little quieter than other fans in the OHL, but I kind of have to disagree with that one. So I know that's a long answer to your question, Kyle, but I think Kitchener would probably be my favorite, and Erie not too far behind. Let's see. Yep, still just the one trade, and we have just over an hour left to go in this OHL Trade Deadline live stream. Will we have a second trade? That's a question I'm putting out there for you guys. Do you think we're going to get another trade, or do you think Zachary Sandu to the Oshawa Generals is the only move we're going to get today? I really hope not, but the way it's going, I thought we'd have at least 3 or 4 trades by now, but still sitting at just the one. So the live stream's still going strong. The live stream will continue probably just past 12 o'clock, and we'll see if any trades trickle in. But today, I don't know why any trades would trickle in. I feel like the trades should be done. Unless we get a barrage of trades, like right at the end, which I guess is possible. We saw that yesterday with the Colts sending Punnett to Oshawa. That trade came after 12 o'clock. And then the trade between Barrie and Niagara, that came after 12 o'clock. That one, I don't think it was posted until after 1 o'clock. I don't think the live stream is going to go until 1 o'clock because my voice is a little dry right now after chatting for the last 2.5 hours, but it's all good. It's great to be able to talk some hockey. So let's see. Let's browse around. Let's see what we can find. Yeah, not a lot doing, but that's all right. We might get a surprise or two at some point. I'll do this. No, we're not doing that. All right. Refresh. Yeah, still just the one trade, but we'll see. Yeah, so chat amongst yourselves. It's going to be okay. Maybe you get, if you got a coffee ready, get another coffee and, stay caffeinated. You want to stay tuned because we want to be excited. We want to be excited when that next trade happens. We don't know who it's going to be, where it's going to be, but we want to be ready. We want to be ready and excited for that next trade whenever it comes. But then again, who could it be? I'm wondering if we do see another trade. I'm thinking it's going to be the London Knights. I feel like London is due for a move. That would be my pick for possible trade, would be the London Knights, but we'll see. Also, maybe the Guelph Storm will add. Maybe. They've already traded Zach Sandu to Oshawa, so that's our big trade of the day. If you're just tuning into the live stream, it's one trade, and that was Zachary Sandu to Oshawa for 3 draft picks today. That trade, I think, came in, I think it was like 9:30 when that one came in, 9:45. It was over an hour ago since we had that first trade. And now it's 11 o'clock, so we are officially in the final hour of this riveting OHL trade deadline. So much excitement. Just the one trade. I was worried yesterday when I was seeing all the trades. I was thinking, well, maybe I should have done the live stream for the overager trade deadline. But nope. We're holding out for today and just the one trade. So we'll wait and see if something comes up. Because right now, everything pretty quiet. Unusually quiet. But it's all good. Also, just seeing if we got any updates in regards to Matthew Poitras. Well, I guess this is interesting. So Matthew Poitras exited yesterday's game with an unknown injury. So that's encouraging if you're a Guelph Storm fan. So it's, yeah, because Poitras, he played for Team Canada at the World Juniors, and then there's the questions, does he go back to Boston? Does he go back to Guelph? And apparently he got hurt last night in the Boston Bruins game. So that's not too good if you're a Boston Bruins fan or a Guelph Storm fan. So I think that there's still that chance that Poitras is sent back at some point, but being it's the OHL trade deadline, you'd kind of hope you'd know that before today. So if the Guelph Storm wanted to make some moves, they could do it today. But right now, Guelph, they've added Xander Vecchia. They did that yesterday. And also sending Dizzotti to the Sioux. And then they sent Sandu to the Oshawa Generals. And Blaker is saying there's a trade. So we're waiting to see confirmation on that. Nothing's been posted yet. So let's wait and see if Blaker has the details on it. Oh, there it is. So the second trade of the day is between the Peterborough Petes and the Mississauga Steelheads. So William Haley, a defenseman, has now been sent to the Peterborough Petes for a conditional 15th round pick. See, I kind of figured we're going to get depth trades. We're not going to be getting any of the earth-shattering trades. So it's Haley. He's kind of a younger defenseman. He hasn't really had too much of an opportunity to play yet. William Haley, he's a 2005 born player. Looking at his stats, just 1 assist in 16 games. So he hasn't been able to play too much. He's still looking for his first career OHL goal. Last year, he only played in 5 games for Mississauga. So he's got 21 games experience. So for the Peterborough Petes, they're a team that's looking to add younger talent. They need players to play. So Haley should be able to get some ice time now with the Petes. And now we've got our second trade. Look at that. It was Mississauga and Peterborough. They're on the board. So now we've got 2 trades to speak of. So it's great to see. So William Haley off to the Peterborough Petes. Not an earth-shattering trade, but it is something. We now have 2 trades that have been announced for this morning. And yeah, so I'm curious as to what the conditions are. Maybe it has to do with the amount of games played, or if he stays for an overage season. I'm not sure what the conditions are at this point, but he's not a big defenseman. He's a player that I think needs to add some size, William Haley. But good for him. He's going to be getting a chance to play with the Peterborough Petes. The Petes, they need more depth after doing all those trades. We're still waiting to see, do they trade Mali? Does he end up getting a new home? That's been a big question mark in regards to the Petes. But William Haley, so maybe this is a sign. I don't know. I doubt it, but we can speculate away because the trade deadline is now 56 minutes away. We got 56 minutes left until that's it for trades. And we've had 2 moves so far. So now we'll see what happens next. So nothing official on the OHL site. So maybe the office is closed today. Joking. It's not. It would be open. They'd be there. They have to approve the trades. You can't just announce trades. But anyways, we've got 2 moves now. Haley to Peterborough and Zachary Sandu to Oshawa. So nothing earth-shattering. These are just some pretty minor moves. But still, they're moves in general. So we've got some trades to talk about this morning. And for the Peterborough Petes, it comes with the territory for junior hockey. You do your big runs, you do your big, you do all those trades. They did that last year. And this year it was going to happen. They were going to have that drop off. They were going to look to sell at the OHL trade deadline. It just comes with the territory. And for the Petes, I think they're going to be, I really like their additions. They've picked up some good talent. Nico Addy, Aiden Young, Caden Taylor. These are all first-round picks from last year. And these first-round picks, if they turn out as expected, then maybe 2 years from now, we're going to be looking at the Peterborough Petes being on another run. As Mike Oak has said, he wants to get this team to be competitive again because the OHL is better when you have a team like the PLL. And I think this is a good sign for the Petes. They're getting younger. They're going to look to try and hold off Barrie and Niagara for that final playoff spot. And I think it's going to be hard for them to do that, but good for them. They've got another young player in William Haley heading their way. So we'll wait and see. Jonathan Mali, he might be a target for some teams. There's already been a few rumors and speculation. And just looking at the Pete's lineup right now, just the way it sits, I would think that might be it. If they do make a trade, it'd be Mali who might be sent out, but that's only speculation. I'm not hearing anything right now in regards to a trade coming, and but it's still good. I think it's great that they're looking to the future. So Peterborough, they should be a good team down the road. They'll be a threat once again. So looking at this, and now we've got the trade. So William Haley officially traded to the Peterborough Petes for a conditional 15th round pick in 2027. So that's a long ways away for a 10th round pick, but we'll wait and see. When do the Colts go all in? I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be a 2-year plan. Next year, I think they're going to look to improve, but they won't go all in next year. I think it'll be the year after when you've got Cole Bodwin and Riley Patterson. Those will be your key players. But I think it'll be a couple of years. Expect the Colts to look to bring in a couple of imports this summer because now Endo Meyer was sent back to Europe at the start of the season, and now you've got Chalet being traded away. So I think it's going to be a couple of years before we see the Colts go quote unquote all in. But it feels like it's been a while since we've had a year where the Colts have really made a splash at the trade deadline. Last year, I think, was the year they should have because they had all the assets. They had all the picks. They had Brant Clark coming back. And I feel like last year was the year they should have done the all in. But it happens in junior hockey. You figure you got to take what you can get. But it does feel like a while since the Barrie Colts did an all-in. Like if you remember the 2018 season when they had Svechnikov and they ended up trading for Aaron Luchuk, and that was a year they kind of went all in and ended up winning the Central Division. They went to the second round of the playoffs, ended up losing to Kingston. So it's been a while since we've had the Barrie Colts do an all-in kind of season, but it might be. I think it's going to be a bit. I think a couple more years. Yeah, bringing in Luchuk and Sokolov, that was a fun season. And looking back, it's really too bad that Svechnikov, he missed quite a bit of time due to injury, and there was also the suspension at the end of the year. So it's like what could have been if for the Barrie Colts that year, because Luchuk, he was just sensational. They brought in Sokolov from Sudbury. That 2018 team was probably the last season that we had a real all-in year for the Barrie Colts. Yeah, I agree. I think Dylan. I think if the Barrie Colts would have added maybe a little more depth up front, because they against North Bay, the battalion, they controlled that first game, and then Evan Vierling got knocked out in the second, and that just seemed to change just that whole dynamic. Because if the Barrie Colts had that extra depth up front, I think the Barrie Colts they could have challenged Peterborough last year in the Western Conference Final. I think last year was definitely the year to do it. But there was just so many questions about Brant Clark. What was he coming back? It's very similar to what Guelph's going through this year with Matthew Poitras. However, Poitras doesn't seem like he's going back to Guelph, but he could still. So, for the Barrie Colts last year, I think would have been a good year to go all in. And then this year, on paper, it looked like the Colts should have had a good season, a good run. But you can't control injuries. Injuries will come up. And that's unfortunately where the Colts come from, because with Bo Akey, he's out for the season. He's a huge loss. The Barrie Colts could really use Akey. And then if Jacob Frasca stayed healthy, I think the Colts maybe would have been able to stay in the top half of the Eastern Conference standings. But injuries have really thrown these guys off. And it'll be nice to see in maybe 2 years. I think we'll be doing a live stream talking about how the Barrie Colts could be going all in. That'd be my guess. 2 years. We'll mark it down. And hopefully in 2 years, the trade deadline day will be a little more active than what we're getting right now. Because we're still 2 trades and we have 48 minutes left to go. So it's a little disappointing, but it comes with the territory. So, yeah, not much we can do about that. It's every season's also different. Yeah, if they could bring back Endo Meyer, that'd be all right. Although I don't know if he was just uncomfortable being here in North America, because he was another player that seemed a little off. And I was really hoping he'd have a great year, because Endo Meyer is just such a fun name. And I think more teams should get players that have fun names, because that just, I don't know, as a broadcaster, that goes a long way. It just adds to the broadcast. It's like that one year we had, was it Svechnikov, Nishnikov, and Lipanov, and they were all on the same name. So that line, I remember putting those three together. I think it was those three: Svechnikov, Lipanov, Nishnikov. I think those three were all together. And I remember when they were put on the line together, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go. Even Bob McKenzie, I remember he tweeted about that, the line, about the OV line. But you make good with what you got. So right now it's, you got the Newtons that are together now. So it's, Jaden Newton and Nolan Newton, put them together. And then now you got Bodie Stewart and Thomas Stewart, who they picked up from the Generals. So it's going to be, it'll be a good challenge, I think, for many broadcasters for the OHL. Because right now, just continuing to refresh just to see if something will come up. I think this is remarkable how quiet the OHL trade deadline is today. So it's, man, we'll see what comes up. But yeah, just 2 trades to report. Hopefully we'll get a third trade. I'm still not hearing, there's really not much speculation going on. I know, I think it was Blaker who mentioned earlier this morning about maybe Lavoie to London, but that hasn't come about. There's Mali. Does he move? Does Jack-Eye move from Brantford? I kind of wondered if Nate Krawchuk could be available, because Kingston, I think they needed backup goaltender. The Frontenacs, they're a team that I'm kind of surprised they haven't done more. They looked like they were showing signs of buying because they brought in Roman Schmidt from the Kitchener Rangers, and then they picked up Jacques Dubois. So those are two overagers, and they just haven't added anything else since. So I'm kind of curious if what Kingston's going to do, because they're a team that's fascinating. So you also have Ledwinski on that team, and I know there's fans that were wondering, does Ledwinski move? Let me just pull up the Kingston Frontenac's roster, because they've got a great lineup, like Christopher Thibodeau, Ethan Medema, Gabriel Frasca. He was hurt to start the year, but he's been playing really well. I almost wondered if Jacob Frasca would have been traded to Kingston to play with his brother, but that didn't pan out. They also picked up Luke McNamara, Nathan Poole's there, Jacob Battaglia. He's a great forward there with the Kingston Frontenac. So Matthew Soto, Maddox Callens. Then you got Jakub Kromiak. So they do have quite the lineup. But I was almost wondering if they were going to add a backup goaltender, because right now they've got Mason Vicari. He's an outstanding goaltender. And then JJ Salico, he's the backup right now. He doesn't really get a lot of ice time, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see what Kingston does. That was a team I thought would do more at the trade deadline, especially considering the moves the Ottawa 67s made, picking up Sam Maillet. I think that's a huge addition for them on the back end. And then Braden Kressler from Flint. So I'm kind of, I don't know. The East Division to me is wide open, and I kind of wonder if maybe Oshawa could even take it. The Generals picking up Connor Punnett's a good pickup. I don't know. The whole East Division is just fascinating. Like, if you look at it right now, Brantford, they're leading the East Division with 43 points. And then next it's Kingston and Ottawa. They have 39 points. So they're both 4 points back. And then Oshawa, 5 points back with 38. The only team that looks out of it is Peterborough, but that's to be expected. So the East Division, it just seems like the East is it's up for grabs. And even though Brantford traded away Donovan and Van Vliet, with Matteo Drobak in net and Nick Lardis up front, Van Acker, Testa, Brantford, I think they could still take that East Division. It's still there. And then they picked up Sobolev from the Niagara Ice Dogs. I think that was a good pickup. The East is just so fascinating. Like right now in the Central, you've got Sudbury, 45 points, and then Mississauga, North Bay. They both have 42. But I'm thinking North Bay will probably pass Mississauga. They could give Sudbury a run for their money. So it looks like it could be a Sudbury-North Bay race for the Central Division. But, man, the East Division just looks wide open. And Dylan says that he likes Denver Barkey. Yeah, Denver Barkey, he's a fun talent. He's a great guy there with the London Knights. He leads the league in shorthanded goals. And I think for London, they've got a lot of depth. I think that's a really good squad they have there with the Knights. They're competitive once again. I know there's a lot of fans who are not happy with the London Knights. They're that favorite team that everyone likes to hate, but they get it done. The Hunters, since taking over that franchise, turning it around and making London a competitive team every year. I know it's hard to do in junior hockey, and I think for a lot of fans, they get a little jealous of what they do there at the London Knights, but they do have a great talent there, Denver Barkey. I also like Sam Dickinson. He looked really good. I know he was originally drafted by Niagara, and then Niagara traded him away to London because he wanted to play with the Knights. But Dickinson should be in a top 10 draft pick this summer. He's looking really good for them. But still, the London Knights, only one trade leading up to the deadline. That was the Caleb Lawrence pickup. And that's just to replace Ethan McKinnon. But I think it's a nice touch for the London Knights organization, having McKinnon stick around being a player development coach, because he was forced to step away due to concussion issues, which is really too bad when a player can't play because of injury, and especially with concussions. That's something that you don't want to mess with. But it is I think it's a great touch there for the London Knights to have Ethan McKinnon on board to finish out the season. So let's just do our look at, everything's just, it is quiet. But yeah, just the two trades to report this morning. The first move was Zachary Sandu, traded to the Oshawa Generals for 3 draft picks. And the trade that happened, like maybe 19 minutes ago, that was William Haley from Mississauga going to the Peterborough Petes for a conditional 15th. That's all we have to report for this morning. So it's been a very quiet OHL trade deadline. We could still see a few moves between now and the noon deadline, but we'll have to wait and see. I think this is going to be. I don't want to say this is it because we still have 40 minutes until the deadline, but yeah, this is. We'll see what happens. Hit refresh again. But I don't know. I think it's still kind of fun. You can talk hockey for a few hours and think about what's coming up, talk about some of the stuff that's happened in the past. And one thing I'm thinking about doing at some point, this might be an off-season thing, is kind of doing like a history video of the teams in the Ontario Hockey League. Like looking back at some of the teams that used to be in the OHL, like because I was digging on the Hunter Brustevich stuff to figure out when was the last time a defenseman led the league in scoring. And that's when I found the information about Brian Fogarty of the Niagara Falls Thunder. And then I started on that rabbit hole about the Niagara Falls Thunder because obviously Niagara Falls eventually relocated to Erie. So they're now the Otters. But it is kind of, I don't know, I find that stuff fascinating when you look back at some of the teams that used to be in the OHL and just some of the names. Like even when Brantford was announced that they were coming back, I looked up the Alexanders to be like, okay, who all played with the Alexanders? Well, you had Shane Corson was big there. There was, who else did I see? I saw Dale Hunter was on that team. So there's a lot of NHL alumni who played on some of these teams that we don't talk about because they relocated and eventually became someone else. So it was, yeah, so maybe that's something I'm thinking of doing is maybe looking back at some of the history with teams around the Ontario Hockey League and just how did we get to the 20 teams that we have today? Looking at some of the relocations. Yeah, like even the whole expansion era, when you had the Toronto Majors, they were playing at St. Mike's, and then you had the Brampton Battalion playing at the Powerade Center, the Mississauga Ice Dogs when Don Cherry was the owner. So yeah, just looking at some of the history of the Ontario Hockey League. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. So Blaker asks, why did the Colts trade Haight away last year? That's my question. It sounds like there was some disagreements behind the scenes. I don't have anything to confirm that, but that's just the hearsay. It kind of felt like for Hunter Haight, things weren't going to plan. He was kind of struggling there a bit before he got traded because Hunter Haight, the Minnesota Wild prospect, he's got the talent, he's got the skill, and now we're seeing it with Saginaw. So it sounds like maybe there was some sort of disagreement behind the scenes with the player, and then also too, the Colts were struggling at that point. They didn't know if Brant Clark was coming back, and it was just, I think for Barry, it was kind of wondering, do we sell? Because there was a point there where the Barrie Colts, just nothing was going right during the season last year. And I think the idea of selling off talent was there. And for Hunter Haight, an opportunity came up with Saginaw, and the Spirit jumped on that. That was even before Saginaw knew they were going to be hosts. They knew they were going to bid for the Memorial Cup. And once they knew they were going to get it, that's when they traded Minshikov to the Ottawa 67s, because the Saginaw Spirit last year, they were having a really good run. And then when they found out about the Memorial Cup, they decided to pull the chute and recoup picks. And then they used those picks this year to pick up Jorian Donovan. And I think a couple of those picks also went to Peterborough in the Owen Beck trade. So that's kind of what played out with Hunter Haight. It was the circumstances, and I think there was some stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm not too sure about. But I hope that answers your question. Now, my question is, when are we going to get another trade? Because it's still, we're still sitting at 2 trades. But yeah, either way, We should get some sort of movement, I'm thinking, but we'll have to wait and see because I'm just looking at getting some updates here. Yeah, we're just nothing's budging. But, that's how it goes sometimes. Sometimes the trade deadlines, you got a lot of excitement and movements, and other times we get what we're getting right now. So we are now 35 minutes away from the OHL trade deadline. Obviously, the deadline is at 12 o'clock. So as long as the teams, because how it works is, as long as the teams get their paperwork to the league before 12 o'clock, and then trades could still happen after 12 because it has to go through the league, get approved, and then finalized. And then that's when we see it on the OHL website, or the teams will announce it on social media that a trade has happened. So there's all these steps. So for the next 35 minutes, teams are probably still chatting and whatnot, and then they have to get the paperwork in before 12 o'clock. So that's why sometimes we don't hear about a trade until after the deadline, which we saw yesterday. And because yesterday was the overager trade deadline, and then today some leftover trades could spill over into the afternoon. But the live stream, I'm looking at maybe going until 12:15-ish. All depends on if we get anything to talk about, because we've been stuck on 2 trades since 8:30 this morning. I think the first trade came in at, was it 9:30? So it took us an hour. And then the second trade wasn't until 11. So that's where we're at. And so we're plugging along here, the live stream almost at 3 hours. But it's been great. It's been fun having people tune in. So thank you for coming on board and even just having the conversations and whatnot. It's been pretty cool. So thank you very much for that. And hopefully we'll have a trade to talk about soon. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll have to wait and see. But it is trade deadline day, and it's always fun. Trade deadline stuff, even at the National Hockey League level, it's always fun just to watch and follow along, see who moves, and especially if you're a fan of junior hockey, seeing some of the names of players move at the National Hockey League level, where it's like, oh, I remember seeing so-and-so when he was on the Barrie Colts, or so-and-so when he was with the Sudbury Wolves or whatever. So trade deadline day, it's always fascinating. And the armchair GMs out in full force. And I know for a lot of us, we like to speculate, because it's like, well, this team has this player and this team could use a player. And then you see the trades and you come up with all the scenarios, and then you get 8 draft picks thrown into the mix, and it's all fun. It's a good time. But we'll wait and see here if we get anything else. I would think we get at least a trade. But then again, I was kind of expecting we'd have at least 4 to talk about by now. But yeah, that's where we're at. Because all the all the focus it seemed was like on Owen Beck. We had so many. Jeff Merrick, who works at Sportsnet, does a great job covering the National Hockey League with his 31 thoughts, and just even having comments and following what goes on in junior hockey is fantastic, because I think junior hockey needs to have a little more coverage. We don't see too much of it, and that's kind of why I started this channel, especially at the Barrie level, because there's not a lot of media coverage when it comes to the Colts. Because for Barrie, they're the only team that doesn't have a radio broadcast, which to me is still, I'm not sure about, because it's, I don't know. I thought growing up, because I grew up following the Kitchener Rangers, and I kind of thought that every team had a radio broadcast, but I was kind of surprised to find out that the Barrie Colts, they've never had or I don't want to say they never, because I think they used to have a team that used to cover it, but still right now we don't have a radio broadcast. So I thought, well, I'll hop onto the YouTube thing, start the channel, and use it as an extension to the broadcast from Rogers. So that's how this channel all came about. And I figured it's the OHL trade deadline, so why don't we do a live stream? Because I also work full-time at a radio station here in Barrie. So I took the day off to do this, and just to follow along and see what happens. So still sitting at the 2 trades. And we're now 30 minutes away from the deadline. Okay, 31 minutes. I was a little wrong on that front, but still, we're getting there. We got 30 minutes. We'll see if we can get there. And there's got to be one more trade, right? Well, thank you, Dylan, for your support. And Blaker, you've been here. I think you've been here since the start. So thank you guys for being along for the ride. And I just hope we get another trade to talk about. 30 more minutes of waiting. Now I think I understand why TSN, when they do the trade deadline stuff, they have all the shenanigans on the side. So maybe next year I should get Gene to join in, because I know he's following along. He's usually posting on Twitter when he has a chance. Him and I message every now and then. So maybe next year we should get Gene Pereira on. I also thought about maybe doing the live stream at the rink, but the Barrie Colts, they're on the road tonight, so it didn't work out. But that was a thought I had, was what if we did the live stream from the broadcast booth in Barrie? But I think it's okay with the setup here. I was able to bring my jerseys out. So next time, maybe I should bring out all my jerseys. But yeah, so maybe next year we'll see. But we need to make sure that the OHL learns that we need to have more trades on trade deadline day if we're going to have more live streams. But no, it's still good fun. We're able to talk hockey, and we'll see what comes up. So refresh this. Yeah, still nothing doing. Kind of surprised with the lack of movements. So we'll see. Yeah, we are now 29 minutes away. Feels like the final countdown. Speaking of the final countdown, I haven't been to a Sudbury Wolves game in a while. Maybe Blaker will know this. Do they still play the final countdown song when they start the third period? Because I know that's what they did at the Sudbury Community Arena whenever I was there. There's always this. You could always you knew what songs were coming based on the time of the game. So I don't know if they still do that or not. So yeah, we're still not getting a whole lot, but we are in the final bit. I'm glad to see they still do that. How do you feel about Marty being GM and coach? That's an interesting question, because I feel like as a GM coach, you have a better knowledge of what the players are like on the ice and off the ice, because you're with them all the time. But at the same time, I think Marty right now, I'm pretty sure Marty is the only one who's GM and coach. This is something that trend has kind of moved away. We don't see that often, unless it's a cost savings thing, if that's why they still do it with the Barrie Colts. But I do understand the practice of it, because if you're the GM on the bench, you're going to know, you see what the players are like up close. You're not just up in the gondola seeing what players are like. So I think Marty does a great job at it. And well, look at what he was able to do with the team last year, getting them the second round of the playoffs. And he has the team dialed in for the home games for sure. The road games, he's still, I think, trying to knock some sense into them. But I think Marty does a pretty good job. It's just a practice that we don't see much of anymore. Like George Burnett, he used to do it with the Belleville Bulls. We had Stan Butler with the Battalion. He used to do that. Who else? We also had Steve Spott with the Kitchener Rangers. He used to do that. And and then Blaker, as you're saying there, the head coach will sometimes be the assistant GM. So we do see that. But I think for most teams, it's common to have the coach being involved with the trade talks, but to have the coach being the one that makes the trade decisions, I think is another thing. But I think Marty he handles it well. He used to do that too with the Niagara Ice Dogs. So I think it's okay. I think it works. it is an interesting setup, but I don't know. When you're seeing the professional ranks, you don't see that anymore, where coaches are also the GM. You used to do that in the National Hockey League at times, where a GM would come onto the bench and take over. But that's definitely something that we don't see anymore. But Marty's also been around the league for a long time, so I guess he's kind of, if that's what he wants to do, then I guess that's what he gets to do. I think when Dale Hawerchuk was the coach, I think that would have been interesting too if he was the GM, because Dale was, he was a great head coach with the Barrie Colts, and a lot of respect for him. And it was really too bad with his passing, because the team was starting to get better, and but I think he would have been an interesting combination between coach and GM. But definitely not something we see anymore. The combination of that. But yeah, so those are my thoughts. Just do another check, another scan. Yeah, just the one trade. Yeah, that'd be something else if this is how it ends. 2 trades after all the trades we saw yesterday ahead of the overager trade deadline. But we'll have to wait and see. Right now, we are 24 minutes away. 24 minutes. And yeah. How many jerseys can I put on at once? I don't know if we need to do that, but but it depends. I have some jerseys that are larger than others, so that would come down to a strategy. I would have to work it so that I have my smaller jerseys on first and then add layers. But yeah, maybe next year we should. I'm trying to think how I could do that. It's very possible. See, this is a learning experience. We're learning how the live streams go. We're seeing how the OHL handles their trades, and yeah, for a shenanigan next year, maybe we should do that. I'll bring down, because I got my jersey are all upstairs, so maybe get a rack, put them down here, and next year we can try and figure out how many jerseys we can put on at once. I like your thinking there, Jeffrey. Yeah, still just the 2 trades. Nothing buzzing right now. This could be it. But what's also really cool is that the Sudbury Wolves, after doing their trades, seeing Zachary Giroux and then Donovan McCoy, once they got to the arena, they were able to use the remote control to operate the stuffed wolf through the rafters. I thought that was a nice touch, putting that on the socials. Because that's one thing I love about Sudbury. It's just that stuffed wolf. When they do move into their new arena, whenever that may be, I hope that they bring that wolf with them. It's kind of like what Sault Ste. Marie did. They had, at the old Memorial Gardens, there was the stained glass. That was at the one side. And when they built the new arena, they took that stained glass, and you'll actually find it still in the new arena. So it's a good touch, and I hope the Sudbury Wolves do that. Or next year, every trade you put on a jersey. Well, if that's the case, that might inspire them to do more trades on trade deadline day. Oh, and I didn't realize Dvorsky also got to operate the Wolf. See, I think that's it's such a unique thing they do in Sudbury with the Wolf. And I think it'd be nice if more teams had some sort of a unique touch to their rink. Maybe not every team should have a taxidermied animal. It works with Sudbury, but it'd be kind of neat if other teams had that. Like with the Columbus Blue Jackets, you have the cannon that goes off whenever they score a goal. So you could maybe have something like that, like something unique that stands out, because every team does the goal horn. Like when I was in London, it's the goal horn they use is the same goal horn they use in Boston. And then they use the same goal song that the Chicago Blackhawks use. So we're all recycling ideas. And I think I love the touch that the Buffalo Sabres do, where every player has a unique goal song. I think more teams could do that. And I think it'd probably be a challenge, but it's a nice touch. It makes it a little unique instead of always sharing goal horns. Because I think it's Windsor. Their goal horn is the same as the Bell Center that the Montreal Canadiens use. And it's, one of the entrances, they have the old wolf that was up there, and it has the big wolves chain on it. Oh, that's pretty cool. The old wolf. Huh. Yeah, I don't know. And then even see, Sudbury is a fun one. If you've never been to a game in Sudbury, I highly recommend it because it's a fun barn. It's old school. It's the atmosphere when the team is good. The atmosphere is probably one of the best in the Ontario Hockey League. The fans are so passionate. You've got the stuffed wolf that goes across. I love the entrance when they have the giant inflatable wolf head. I think that's incredible. They got the new scoreboard, so that's one of the better scoreboards in the Ontario Hockey League at center ice. So I think I really like what Sudbury has done. Dario Zolic taking over as owner from the Burgesses. He's transitioned really well, and I think he's done a great job with that team. It's great to see that they're competitive, and it'll be fantastic when the Sudbury Wolves do get that new facility, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And I'm going to have to make, I think, another trip to Sudbury soon. Hey, if the Barrie Colts play Sudbury in the playoffs, I'll probably make the trip up. But we'll have to wait and see. The Barrie Colts, they need to make the playoffs first. So still no new trades. We're just looking at the two. In 19 minutes, we're down to the final 19. We've been going at it now for over 3 hours on the live stream. And thank you to those who've been here the whole time. This has been a fun ride. And Blaker says, do you think the big TV in Ottawa is weird as a scoreboard? It's different. I think because Ottawa's a basement because it's built under the grandstand for the football field. So it's kind of hard to do for them. I think when the scoreboard, before the renovations, the scoreboard was off center because the fans under the one side, you can't see the scoreboard. So that's why they have all the small TVs. But for the fans on the big horseshoe part, I think it's great having the big screen. It's probably one of the biggest. So I think it's different, but you make good with what you have. That rink is so unique. TD place. Ottawa's a fun one, except you still can't use the box seats in Ottawa because it's been condemned. Because you'll notice at the top, you've got they look like little cubes around the edge. What I've been told is that's all been condemned. So you can't use those boxes anymore because the press box used to be way up top and it used to be one of the best views, but now it's brought down into the seats. So they put a card table over the old seats. But I think the scoreboard's a nice touch, but it's a very unique facility to take in a hockey game. I also went to Barrie this year to watch the Wolves play, and they lost in a shootout. Oh, that was the first game back from the Christmas break. Yeah, in that game, the Wolves played really well. The offense that the Sudbury Wolves have is fantastic, and I think that's why adding Giroux and Van Vliet is a good touch. But in that game, Ben West was just something else. He was sensational in that game. And for the Barrie Colts, they're going to have to play that kind of style where you're waiting for the mistakes. You're waiting for the turnovers. And that's how they beat the Wolves in that game because they got back. And that's how they beat the Greyhounds last weekend too, because Sault Ste. Marie heavily outshot the Colts at times, and they were dominating up 1-0 going into the third. And for the Barrie Colts, they were just waiting for their chances. And Bo Jelsma, who is something else, he should be the next captain. He got that goal and turned it around. So the Barrie Colts on home ice, such a different team. And Blaker, you probably saw that too when you came down for that game because Ben West was just incredible in net. And the Barrie Colts just took advantage of their opportunities and ended up winning that game in a shootout. So We are now down to 16 minutes. The countdown is on. And we're still only at 2 trades. So if you're tuning in late, you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on in the OHL? Well, we've got 2 trades to report. The Guelph Storm sent Zachary Sandu to the Oshawa Generals for 3 draft picks. And the Mississauga Steelheads sent William Haley to Peterborough for a conditional pick. And that's all we can report. So if you're tuning in now, you haven't missed too much, but you never know. We might get a late addition. From what I've been told, the Barrie Colts are done trading. They will not be making any more moves, and you kind of get the sense that some of the bigger teams that did the trades, they're also done. But you never know. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, I like how there's a Topper's Pizza that's in the arena in that restaurant. Yeah, the restaurant is a unique touch. I think it's great that it's there, but I don't understand how people can watch a game from a dinner table. That just seems strange to me. Although everyone's got their preferences and everyone's got their thing. It's cool that you can have the food catered at the end, but still, yeah, it's a nice touch. I think it is cool that they have that, but it is pretty handy. And the city of Sudbury bought Wacky Wings, and the rumors have it that Wacky Wing will go in the Wolves' new. Oh, that would be sensational. See, Wacky Wing, so my family, we lived in Sudbury for 4.5 years because I used to do the color commentary with Stu Kernan when he was the road play-by-play guy, and then I did the odd play-by-play. And when we were there, Wacky Wing was our go-to. We loved that spot. We took our family up there in the summer because we did some camping in the area and we wanted to go to Wacky Wing. So I was curious as to what was going on there. And if they put Wacky Wing into the arena, that would be cool. And I'd be curious as to how that would all work. So you just made my day there, Blaker, with that news. I think that'd be really cool. Wacky Wing inside the arena. What's also cool is that there's a Wacky Wing in North Bay, and I think there's a Wacky Wing in Sault Ste. Marie. So it's a Northern Ontario thing, and sometimes I miss that. It's a nice touch for Northern Ontario, and it's great to see that Northern Ontario's teams are all being competitive this year: Sudbury, North Bay, and Sault Ste. Marie. So it's great to see, and still waiting for a trade. We're still only sitting at 2 trades. I love that we've gone from talking about putting on all my jerseys to arenas to talking about the stuffed wolves to I love that we've been able to fill the time. We've filled it quite nicely. Yeah, still waiting. So it's 11:47. Well, we'll see what happens. We might get an odd trade after, but why would they wait until the buzzer? Unless it's for dramatic effect. Which GM in the Ontario Hockey League is the most dramatic or would want to be the most dramatic? That's a tough one. I think it'd be Hunter. Mark Hunter, I could see him wanting to do a dramatic trade right at the finish. Considering how quiet the London Knights have been, I think maybe he could do it. West stood on his head in the hall. He did. Ben West, he was remarkable in relief for Sam Hillebrand because, of course, Hillebrand joined Team USA at the World Juniors, and West, he deserves a lot of credit. He helped the Colts weather some of those storms and helped them get some of those wins, particularly that win against the Sudbury Wolves and then the Owen Sound attack. Even they win against Sault Ste. Marie. He looked fantastic. So I think Ben West has really done well. And what's cool is that he's a Barrie native. So he's from Barrie. He's playing for his hometown team. He didn't really get much action last year. So it's nice to see him getting that ice time now. And he's just running with it. He's in his overage season. It seemed as though this year that West would have been let go if Anson Thornton came back from Arizona at the start of the season. But because of those circumstances, Ben West, he was able to take the crease. Him and Hillebrandt have looked fantastic, and he deserves a lot of credit. I think Ben West has done well, and especially to play 3 games in 3 nights. I know goalies are crazy to begin with, but he played great. Well, even though they lost that game against Sarnia 2-1, he still played really good. He tried to keep the Colts in it in that game in London, and then they were able to pull through against the Greyhounds. So yeah, Ben West stood on his head, and he looked really good during the holidays. It's I'm still not sure who's getting the start tonight. Hillebrandt is back. They're in Erie to play the Otters, so it could be Hillebrandt, and then maybe West gets the start tomorrow night because they're in St. Catharines to play the Ice Dogs, and that's a big game because Niagara wanting to catch Peterborough and Barrie in those Eastern Conference standings, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Ben West, I agree, Jeffrey. He was solid over the holidays. So still just the 2 trades. We are now 10 minutes away from the OHL trade deadline. 10 minutes and still just 2 trades. Oh, what a morning. So yeah, I think if I've learned anything, maybe we'll do a live stream ahead of the overager trade deadline instead of the actual trade deadline. Maybe. We'll see if I learn my lesson, because next year, maybe it'll be opposite. I'll do a live stream on the overager deadline, and we get like 2 moves like today, and the OHL trade deadline will have all the moves. Because next year, we talked about this earlier, is Saginaw. They're going to have Zane Parekh. They're going to have Michael Misa. Do they trade them for draft picks to recoup next year? Because obviously a lot of players are going to graduate this year from the Saginaw Spirit after their moves and going for the Memorial Cup. So next year's trade deadline is going to be fascinating to see what the Saginaw Spirit do. And then, of course, you've got Mississauga, who looks like they're going to be a good team next year. Oshawa should be a good team next year. And also the Erie Otters. That's another team to look out for next season. But for this year, though, still just the 2 trades. We're now down to 9 minutes. It's the final stretch, the final countdown. I feel like we should have the Sudbury Wolves playing that song right now. Yeah, Quentin Musty is another one. Yeah, because if he comes back from the San Jose Sharks, he could, because the Sudbury Wolves are probably going to be a team next year that they're going to have a lot of graduating players. So that's another, there's going to be some big names available for trade next year. The deadline. So all these teams that picked up a lot of picks this year, I'm thinking like Brantford, they got a lot of picks. Barrie, they could be in on some names next season. And then the Kitchener Rangers too. They were supposed to be rebuilding this year, or that was the thought. So you have to figure next year Kitchener will be a team rebuilding. But we still have a whole 12 months to go before that trade deadline. But still, it is interesting to look ahead as to what things could happen, who could be moved, and what teams are going to be competitive. Because who picked Kitchener to be the first place team right now in the West? And maybe London buys a lot next year too. Yeah, the Knights. I'm surprised the Knights didn't do much more at this trade deadline because they usually make a few moves. But yeah, next year, if Sam Dickinson comes back, if he selected 5th overall, say he's picked by Columbus, I would think Columbus would look to keep him. It's almost like the Matthew Poitras thing, but still, it's the London Knights. So, London will probably be another team next year looking to buy. Should we start the rumors now? Quentin Musty to the Knights and Zane Parekh and maybe Michael Misa. Yeah. We'll see. We still have to finish off this year, and we still only have the 2 trades, 6 more minutes. 6 minutes remaining in the OHL trade deadline. So this is what it comes down to. And still not seeing anything. I think this might be it. I got this feeling that we might not have any more trades to report. Just the 2. We waited all morning for the trade deadline to come, and we just have the 2 trades. But still, there are some big moves. The big movers, of course, Saginaw adding Owen Beck, adding Jorian Donovan. So that team is looking stacked. And then, of course, the Sioux, they did their pickups with Frasca, also getting Gavin Hayes. The Kitchener Rangers getting Edward Chalet. So that's a big one. The Ottawa 67s, they did pretty good. Maillet and Kressler. I think the 67s, they're looking to, have a good run this year. North Bay, we haven't really talked much about North Bay today. The Battalion, they did their big trade, picking up Andrew and Jacob LeBlanc and Sandis Vilmanis from Sarnia, and then also Bronson Ride from the Niagara Ice Dogs. That's a good pickup. So North Bay looking to challenge the Sudbury Wolves, they've done well too. Zachary Giroux and Van Vliet, I like those additions, and McCoy. So the Sudbury Wolves, they did really well. But it all depends on how things go on the ice. They need the chemistry. You need to have these players work together. You need to make sure the systems are still good. And how do the players that are already there feel? Because some of those players might have reduced ice time now with some of those bigger names coming on board. So how is that going to impact those guys as well? So it's going to be an interesting couple of months to get ready for the playoffs, as we're now 5 minutes away from the OHL trade deadline. Still just the 2 trades. Nothing seems to be brewing. So right now, just riding it out. Unless the OHL is going to wait until after 12 o'clock, then they'll post everything. They wouldn't do that, would they? You never know. We'll see. But right now, as it stands, just the 2 trades to report. After how many trades did we have yesterday? We had quite a few moves yesterday before the OHL trade deadline. But right now, as it stands, we only have the 2 moves involving Guelph and Oshawa and Mississauga and Peterborough. So things are slowing down, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, maybe Dvorsky comes back next year for Sudbury. That's possible. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he moved up next year with the St. Louis Blues. Because Dvorsky, he's been more than advertised, I feel, with the Sudbury Wolves. He's looked really good. He's been a huge addition for the Sudbury Wolves. So Dvorsky coming back, maybe. But it all depends on the St. Louis Blues organization and what who they're going to have around and what they're going to be doing. But I think if you get Dvorsky and Musty back, there's 2 big trade chips. Unless they're competitive, unless the Sudbury Wolves can make it back-to-back years of trying to get to the Central Division. But I'm thinking they got a lot of players who are going to be graduating this year, so. But then again, you never know. Nobody picked Kitchener. Nobody said the Kitchener Rangers were going to run with the top spot in the West Division or in the Western Conference. So anything is possible, and it's going to be a good run, I think, for the Sudbury Wolves this year. They should win the Central Division, but North Bay, they're going to make it really tough. Dom DiVincentis, I know his numbers haven't been great this year compared to last year, but he is still one of the better goaltenders in the OHL. So Dom DiVincentis, he could steal games. But how great would it be to have Sudbury and North Bay meet in the Western Conference Final? That would be an incredible series. The rivalry would just explode. And I feel like that's what's missing right now between Sudbury and North Bay. The Battalion and Wolves organizations used to meet a lot in the playoffs when they were in Brampton. And those matchups, they were good. But if you can get Sudbury and North Bay meeting in the postseason, I think that'd be something else. But we are now in the final minute of the OHL trade deadline. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to scour. Yeah, this might be it. So we are in the final minute. The OHL trade deadline is about to strike. And I think we're going to only have the 2 trades officially. More trades could come out later, but Why would you wait until now to announce the trade? You had all morning. Or has everyone been sleeping in? Maybe everyone missed their alarm. The only ones awake were George Burnett and Hunt at 9 o'clock this morning. But either way, it's this is what it's come down to. So we're about to hit the deadline, and that's how it's going to go. It's going to be a fun rest of the regular season, as it is now officially 12 o'clock. So the OHL Trade Deadline has now struck. So after yesterday's day of moves, today, not much left over. The teams did their big trades yesterday. Yesterday was when we saw a lot of the big moves, as Dylan is just saying there, crazy day yesterday. And that's how it's going to go. So the OHL trade deadline has now passed. And thank you, Josh, for tuning in on the live stream. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with that Edward Chalet move too. It was a late confirmation, but that trade did come through, and it's going to be fun to see how the rest of this regular season goes. It's fun to talk junior hockey. I thank you all for tuning in. I'm also starting to lose my voice. Talking for 3.5 hours, it takes a bit, but thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon. If there are any trades that are coming late, I'll put a video together and I'll let you know in the recap what happened. But if you're tuning in just now for the deadline, 2 trades today. Zachary Sandu traded to the Oshawa Generals for 3 picks, and then William Haley traded to Peterborough for a conditional pick. So that is it. The trade deadline has expired. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and remember, the Colts back in action on Saturday. Gene and I will have the call on Rogers. It'll be fun having the Brantford Bulldogs in town, and we'll get to see the new faces for the first time. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.